Good morning and welcome to the Board of Commissioners meetings for February 16th. This is our zoning hearing. Our tradition is to begin our meetings with an invocation and a pledge to our country's flag. Today, the invocation will be presented by Reverend Christopher Cant Chappelle, from Grace Community Christian Church in Kennesaw. That'll be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Officer Mowry. For those that wish to do so, please rise for the invocation and pledge.
Good morning to everyone. Spirit of the living God, God of the Most High, we thank you for this day. We thank you for waking us. We thank you for the activities of our limbs. We pray now, God, for wisdom. We pray for guidance. We thank you for this great county. We thank you for this state and this country. We pray for our leaders, God, and we pray for a spirit of unity. As you declared, come, let us reason together. We pray now, God, that we will work together, that you will be glorified and exalted. We thank you for the risen Christ who lives through us, and we pray now that others will be drawn to this marvelous light. Peace and blessings be upon all families that are represented here today. In the precious, matchless name of Jesus, I pray. Amen, amen, and amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend. Glad to have you here today. Thank you, Officer Mowry. I'll now call this meeting officially to order. John, let's get into it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today's hearing will be conducted with the following process and procedure. Each case will be called in numerical order. When each case is called, the applicant is asked to stand and signify that they are in attendance. Then we're going to call for any opposition to signify that they are here also, so that they can be counted for the official record. After the counting of the opposition, the applicant and any opposition will be asked to come forward to be sworn in so they can present testimony to the Board of Commissioners. The applicant will testify first, and then the opposition, if any, will testify second. It's important to note that each side only gets 10 minutes to state their case or concerns. There's not a rebuttal process, and there's not a process to reserve your time, so convey all your information to the Board of Commissioners within your 10-minute time period. Additionally, if more than one person wishes to speak on a case, you might want to coordinate with each other about what you want to talk about, what you're going to talk about, because each side only gets 10 minutes, and you don't want to cover the same information twice. Then, after both sides have had their 10-minute presentation period, the Board of Commissioners will start to discuss the case at hand. From the discussion, they may ask one or more of the speakers to come back to the podium for additional information or for questions. After that, the board will make a decision to either hold, continue, approve or reject the case at hand. Mr. Chairman, there is one case on today's printed agenda in which the applicant is asking to be withdrawn without prejudice. That's other business item number 57, Elite Auto Collision and Sales. The applicant has sent in a letter asking this case to be withdrawn without prejudice, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Need a vote.
Commissioner Cupid?
57, withdrawn without prejudice.
Thank you. I move that we allow application Z57 to be,
It'd be OB 57.
excuse me, OB 57, yes, that's right, to be removed or withdrawn from the agenda without prejudice.
Second. Any other questions? Call a question. Motion carries 4-0. Just for the record, Commissioner Rod is out for today.
Mr. Chairman and Board, there are a number of cases on today's agenda which have been continued by either staff or the Planning Commission. First case that has been continued is rezoning case Z87 of 2015, Fuqua Acquisitions 2 LLC. That case was continued by the staff, will not be heard until the March zoning cycle, so Z87 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z98 of 2015, Columbia Properties Capital LLC. That case was also continued by the staff until the March zoning cycle, so Z98 of 2015 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z102 of 2015, Griffin Real Estate Management. That case was continued by the staff until the March zoning cycle, so Z102 of 2015 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z105 of 2015, EAH Acquisitions LLC. That case was continued by the staff until the March zoning cycle, so Z105 of 2015 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z106 of 2015, CRP Oakmont Skyline 2 LLC. That case was continued by the staff until the April zoning cycle, so Z106 of 2015 will not be heard till April. Rezoning case Z4, Unique International Auto LLC. That case was continued by the Planning Commission until the March zoning cycle, so Z4 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z5, Aldridge Grading and Trucking Company Incorporated. That case was continued by the Planning Commission until the March zoning cycle, so Z5 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z6, Greenhouse Properties of Atlanta LLC. That case was continued by the staff until the March zoning cycle, so Z106 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z10, AP Homes Incorporated, was continued by the staff until the March zoning cycle, so Z10 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z11, Manusha Jahangard, was continued by the Planning Commission until the March zoning cycle, so Z11 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z14, Kokentai, was continued by the Planning Commission until the March zoning cycle, so Z14 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z16, Dobbins Mill LLC. That case was continued by the staff until the March zoning cycle, so Z16 will not be heard today. Land use permit number 30 of 2015, John S. Heil. That case was held by the Board of Commissioners, so that case will not be heard until the March 15, 2016 zoning hearing. SLEP1, Unique International Auto LLC. That case was continued by the Planning Commission until the March zoning cycle, so SLUP 1 will not be heard today. SLEP3, Dobbins Mill LLC, was continued by staff until the March zoning cycle, so SLUP 3 will not be heard today. And lastly, SLUP 4, Manusha Jahangard, was continued by the Planning Commission until the March 1, or the March zoning cycle, so SLUP 4 will not be heard today. Mr. Chairman of the Board, there's also a number of other business items which have been continued and will not be heard today. First one that's been continued is other business item number 50 of 2015. This case was continued by the staff until the March 15th, 2016 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing, so other business 50 of 2015 will not be heard today. Other business item number 2 was continued by the staff until the March 15, 2016 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing, so other business item number 2 will not be heard today. Other business item number 3 was continued by the staff until the March 15, 2016 zoning hearing, so other business item number 3 will not be heard today. And lastly, other business item number 4 was continued by the staff until the March 15, 2016 zoning hearing, so other business item number 4 will not be heard today. I would like to ask the people in today's audience, if you have a cell phone, please put it on silent mode. The ringing does interfere with broadcasts and presentations. So if you have a cell phone, please put it on silent mode or airplane mode. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to start the consent agenda.
Let's go.
Thank you. Cobb County Board of Commissioners zoning hearing consent agenda for February 16, 2016. Rezoning case Z1, Clare House Living Incorporated. Request rezoning from HI to NRC for the purpose of a personal care facility with assisted living component in land lot 910 of the 19th District. The property is located on the south side of Flint Hill Road, east of Industry Road. The Planning Commission recommends deletion of Z1 to the TS zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Site plan received by the zoning division on January 12, 2016. Letters of agreeable conditions from Mr. Garvis L. Sams Jr. dated January 12, 2016 and January 28, 2016, not otherwise in conflict. Zoning division comments and recommendations, not otherwise in conflict. Fire department comments and recommendations, not otherwise in conflict. Planning division comments and recommendations, not otherwise in conflict. Water and sewer division comments and recommendations, not otherwise in conflict. Stormwater management division comments, not otherwise in conflict. And Department of Transportation comments and recommendations, not otherwise in conflict. The applicant's representative is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z1? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Rezoning case Z2, Pasta Bella Incorporated. Request rezoning from NS to R15 for the purpose of single-family residential in land lot 848 of the 19th District. The property is located on the east side of Reed Drive, north of Hurt Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval of Z2 to the R15 zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Site plan received by the zoning division on November 19, 2015, with the district commissioner approving minor modifications. Allowance of variances as stated in the zoning comments contained in the zoning analysis. 35-foot landscape buffer to be installed between the residential and commercial zonings. The buffer should primarily be on the commercial property, with the exception of where the 35 feet is not available given to the new parking on a site plan. In that case, part of the buffer may be installed on the residential lots. Landscaping to be placed around the new parking area. Landscape and buffer plan to be submitted to the county arborist or county landscape architect for approval. The buffer to be installed within 90 days of the Board of Commissioners' final approval. Fire Department comments and recommendations. Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations. Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations. Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. And the owner-developer to enter into a development agreement pursuant to OCGA 367113 for dedication of system improvements to mitigate traffic concerns. Is the applicant present? Is the applicant here for rezoning case Z2? Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z2? Let the record show there's no one opposed, and we'll call the applicant, Mr. Chairman, and try to get him in here before.
Okay, set it aside for a little bit. Let me ask you a question on item number 3, the Planning Commission comments number 2, 35-foot landscape buffer to be installed between residential and commercial zonings. The buffer should be primary on a commercial property with the exception of where the 35-foot buffer is not available given. So that it appears to me from the drawing I have that the additional parking is actually going to be on the residential lots. Is that correct?
No, it's going to be on it's all one lot currently, split zoned. There's 2 houses on the back part and a restaurant on the front part. One applicant owns all the property, and they're splitting off the 2 houses because there's 2 houses on the property. And once that division is made, the buffer's going to be placed in between the 2 properties.
Where?
It's primarily going to be on the commercial property because that's where it's
But
required.
it's all concrete.
It's actually gravel.
There is a little bit of room, Mr. Chairman, probably 10 or 15 feet on the edge of the back edge of the parking lot. So the balance of the buffer is going to have to be on the residential lot where they can't meet it, in that one corner.
Okay. Is there going to be a permanent easement for the parking given to those residential lots? Or the residential lot's going to be divided and,
All the parking is going to be on the part of the lot that's still zoned commercially. The entire thing is zoned neighborhood shopping right now. So the parking condition is going to be on the
yeah,
NS zone piece
but
of
if
property.
you're looking at the television right now, you young kids, that's what we used to call video monitors. If you, where the mouse cursor is, that is where the new parking's going, right?
That's right. But Mr. Chairman, what's shown on the screen is not actually the boundaries of what's getting zoned. Where you see the gravel line and the tree line, it's kind of where the zoning line is going to be going.
Will the land lots be
It's got to be replatted through site plan review to split off the 2 lots. But the boundary that's shown there, the eastern boundary, is not exactly correct. It should be moved over a little bit.
okay. This is not my district. It's my county, but it's not my district. I predict a problem for future administrations. Next case.
If I may just add, the owner does own both of those lots back there. And part of the planning commissioner's recommendation was to make sure there was an adequate buffer in case he did decide to sell those lots, that there would be an adequate tree line. But for the present time being, the owner does have those residential parcels in addition to the commercial parcel.
Yeah, it just says the buffer's going to be installed in 90 days, so it's nothing about future there in that comment. Okay, next case.
Thank you, sir.
Excuse me, I have an additional stipulation to add.
Okay.
Per site plan, access from Hurt Road should be closed.
Close access to Hurt Road.
Yes.
Okay. And we'll call the applicant up, Mr. Chairman and Board, before
Sure.
we vote on this. We'll put this to the side when we do the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, rezoning case Z3, John A. Glore, request a rezoning from GC to NRC for the purpose of a specialized contractor in land lots 33 and 34 of the 18th District. The property is located on the west side of Sidney Ann Court, west of Powell Drive. The Planning Commission recommends approval of Z3 to the NRC zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Site plan received by the zoning division on November 24, 2015, with recognition of encroachment into required 15-foot side setback on the southern property line as well as the rear 35-foot landscape buffer, with the District Commissioner approving minor modifications. Letter of agreeable conditions from Mr. Garvis L. Sams Jr. dated January 25th, 2016. Item number 5, second paragraph, first sentence, revised to read, the applicant and/or his representative to form a landscape oversight committee comprised of the applicant, the Mapleton Improvement Coalition, and a representative of community development. To item number 5, second paragraph, add to the end, the community development representative shall have final authority to arbitrate differences. Use limited to a specialized contractor's office, administrative or professional office use, or retail use only. No outdoor storage or display of merchandise. County arborist to approve the rear 35-foot landscape buffer. Installation of a black vinyl-coated chain link fence, 6 feet in height along the rear property line of the building. Fire Department comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. And Department of Transportation comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. The applicant's representative is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z3? Let the record show there's no one opposed.
Excuse me, John, I have modification to a stipulation.
Okay.
Yes. I would like to strike stipulation number 6 regarding installation of a black vinyl coated fence 6 feet in height along the rear property line of the building. Upon visiting the site with the owner, the actual building is already enclosed by a chain link fence, which has barbed wire. There was concern from a rear residential property owner about people traversing the back of the property, but it's very clear that they're actually traversing where the adjacent commercial property is, not this one. The adjacent commercial property is actually owned by the same owner. And while we can't bind that particular property based on this zoning, he has committed to put up a fence along the rear property line of that building, because it's clear from the way that's is laid out that that's where people are trespassing.
Okay.
So that's why I just want to share that. That's why that additional protection is being removed in stipulation 6, because that is not where the issue is being posed.
Okay. So deletion number 6. All right. Rezoning case C7, Diamond Roofing Company Incorporated. Request a rezoning from R20 to LI for the purpose of a contractor's office in land lot 34, the 18th district. The property is located on the east side of Powell Drive, south of Veterans Memorial Highway. The Planning Commission recommends deletion of Z7 to the NRC zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Site plan received by the zoning division on December 1st, 2015, recognizing the existing lot size. Letter of agreeable conditions from Mr. Parks Huff dated February 2nd, 2016. Item number 3, first sentence revised to read, include F-150 and F-250 size vehicles and a maximum of 2 F-800 size trucks. Item number 3, second sentence revised to read, additionally, a maximum of 2 batch kettles. Item number 12, revised to read, lot will be repaved and striped for regular parking spaces within 180 days. Item number 13, revised to read, construct a 6-foot black or green vinyl coated chain link fence. Item number 13, add to the end, any pavement in front of the fence installed parallel to Powell Drive should be removed and landscaped as appropriate. No outdoor storage allowed. Fire Department comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. Water and Sewer comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. And Department of Transportation comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z7? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Rezoning case Z8, Faraz Ali requests a rezoning from GC to CRC for the purpose of a convenience market with fuel sales in land lot 295 of the 17th district. The property is located at the northwest corner of Austell Road and Atlanta Road. The Planning Commission recommends deletion of Z8 to the TS zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Site plan to be modified and resubmitted prior to Board of Commissioners meeting. Northern property line on the site plan to allow fencing and landscaping. Over time, the landscaping should hide the fence. Letter of agreeable conditions from Mr. Parks Huff dated January 26, 2016. Architecture of building to be substantially in conformance with the pictures provided at this hearing, with approval by the District Commissioner. Columns on the canopy should be bricked. 6-foot black or dark green vinyl coated privacy fence to be installed on the northern property boundary with heavy landscaping on both sides. Landscape plan and buffer to be approved by the county arborist and the district commissioner. Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. And Department of Transportation comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. The applicant's representative is present. Is there anyone here opposed? Rezoning case Z8. Let the record show there's no one opposed.
Excuse me, John.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, in communication with the representative for the applicant, I would like to share the following changes and additions to the stipulation. For stipulation number 1, it should read, the site plan to be modified and approved by district commissioner. The northern boundary on the site plan to allow for fencing and landscaping. Over time, the landscaping should hide the fence. Stipulation number 5 should read 6-foot black or dark green vinyl coated privacy fence to be installed on the northern boundary with heavy landscaping on both sides to reduce sight and sound on adjacent property. Stipulation number 11 should be added to read all dumpsters to have rubber lids and be enclosed with brick material and architecture similar to architecture of building with district commissioner approval. Okay. And then stipulation number 12 should read, lighting on site to be hooded and face away from adjacent residential properties. That's all.
Mr. Huff, Commissioner Lynn, please. Is this a new building?
Yes.
Does your client intend to sell any alcohol-related products?
Yes.
Are they familiar with our alcohol code, distance requirements and other things?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Next case, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Rezoning case Z9, Jessica Lozano Montiel requests rezoning from NS to CRC for the purpose of an auto broker's office in land lot 1006 of the 19th District. The property is located on the east side of Austell Road, north of Elmwood Drive. The Planning Commission recommends deletion of Z9 to the LRO zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Site plan dated January 11th, 1996, with allowances of additional parking and noting that the carport has been removed. 8-foot landscape enhancement strip to be installed along Austell Road right-of-way. Landscaping to be installed around the building. Landscape plan to be submitted and approved by the county landscape architect. Installation of landscape and enhancement strip and landscaping to be completed within 90 days of the final approval of the Board of Commissioners. Repair of the fascia, window trim, and crawl space access to be completed within 90 days of final approval by the Board of Commissioners. Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. And Department of Transportation comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z9? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Rezoning case Z12, Covenant Presbyterian Church. Request rezoning from R20 to NRC for the purpose of a church with an electronic sign in land lots 515, 516, 565, and 566 of the 16th District. The property is located at the northwest corner of Canton Road and Piedmont Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval of Z12 to the NRC zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Church or church-related uses only. Sign renderings received by the zoning division on December 3rd, 2015. Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. And the owner-developer to enter into a development agreement pursuant to OCGA 367113 for dedication of system improvements to mitigate traffic concerns. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z12? Let the record show there's no one opposed. And moving into land use permits on the consent agenda. LUP 1, Shirley Streetman, request a land use permit renewal for the purpose of a beauty shop in land lot 269 of the 17th District. The property is located on the east side of Woodview Drive, south of Church Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval of LUP 1 for 24 months, subject to the following conditions: no on-street parking, customers by appointment only, no employees, and no signs. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to LUP 1? Let the record show there's no one opposed. And moving into special land use permits on the consent agenda, SLUP 2, Legacy Christian School Incorporated, request a special land use permit for the purpose of a private school in land lot 402 of the 16th District. The property is located on the south side of Shallowford Road, west of North Hembry Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval of SLUP 2, subject to the following conditions: site plan dated December 1, 2015, with the District Commissioner approving minor modifications. Letters of agreeable conditions from Mr. Adam Rosen dated January 22nd, 2016, and January 27th, 2016. Fire Department comments and recommendations, and Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. The applicant's representative is present. Is there anyone here opposed to SLUP 2?
John, the Commissioner has a thought.
The director shows no one opposed.
Commissioner has
Thank
a
you.
comment. Thank you.
I have a comment. On the Planning Commission's recommendation, step number 2 should read, letter of agreeable conditions from Adam Rosen dated January 27th, 2016.
Okay, so we're deleting the first
We're
letter.
deleting the first letter
Okay.
because the 27th letter supersedes that.
Gotcha, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving into other business applications on today's consent agenda. Other business, item number 1, to consider granting a special exception for reduction of public road frontage as recommended by the Board of Zoning Appeals from their January 13th, 2016 variance hearing regarding variance application V15, Mitchell Naimi. Staff recommends the Board of Commissioners approve the special exception subject to the Board of Zoning Appeals minutes for V15 of 2016. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 1? And let the record show the applicant is here also. And that completes the consent agenda, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Have we been able to get a hold of anybody for Z2?
We're working on it, Mr. Chairman, not yet.
Okay, so let's approve, I'm going to bring forward a motion and we present or approve consent cases as revised for Z1, Z3, 37, 8, 9, Z12, LUP1, SLUP 2, and LBO 1. And we'll come back to 2 should that applicant show up. So there's a motion for those cases as listed as revised. Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments? Call the question. Motion carries 4-0. Z95.
Yes, sir. Rezoning case Z95 of 2015, Racetrack Petroleum Incorporated, request rezoning from NRC and LI to NRC for the purpose of a convenience market with fuel sales in land lot 157 of the 16th District. The property is located at the northeast intersection of Canton Road and Shalford Road and on the south side of Pine Mill Drive. The applicant's representative is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z95? Let the record show there's 2 people opposed. All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
Good morning, Parks.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Parks Huff with the law firm of Sam's Larkin, Huff and Ballard, and I represent Racetrack regarding this rezoning application before you this morning. This case was continued last month for us to work on some issues related to DOT and traffic, and we're here with a revised stipulation letter and a revised DOT comments that support the application. This is a piece of property, if I can get the aerial photograph showing the property on the monitors or TV. The property is on the northeast corner of Shalford Road and Canton Road. Little history of trivia here. There actually has traditionally been a convenience store at Shalford and Canton Road when Canton Road was slightly further south. But when the realignment happened of Shalford Road, the convenience store closed. So this is an area that has traditionally had a convenience store in the area. It is a property that is currently zoned NRC with the back portion of it light industrial. Most of the property on our side of the road is GC light industrial. or other type of commercial uses, even with residential zoning on some of those properties. It is a signalized intersection of Canton Road and is appropriate for this type of use. Your professional staff reviewed the application, and because it is consistent with the future land use map and the neighborhood activity center designation, the professional staff recommended approval of the application. The Planning Commission also reviewed the application and also recommended approval of the application based upon the factors contained in the staff report. And the issue of access has always been the overriding question and how to address that. And we have a revised site plan and a revised stipulation letter dated February 10th, wherein we have outlaid that we will have an access point on Shallowford Road, which will be limited to a right-in, right-out. We also have dedication of right-of-way along Shallowford Road to allow for additional improvements along Shallowford Road that are anticipated in the near future. The access on Canton Road, the neighbors had a lot of concern about left turning movements out, and also DOT had concerns about the left turning movement out. So we have agreed that the left turning movement out on Canton Road will also be prohibited. We do have a circuitous access also to Pine Mill, which dead ends into our property, which allows access to the properties to the rear, and an additional access to Shallowford Road in that direction. We are also dedicating right-of-way along Shallowford Road. We're in agreement with the pedestrian streetlight district along Canton Road and the Canton Road design guidelines relating to landscaping and other such criteria. It's been a pleasure to work with the Canton Road neighbors, and they have actually issued a letter in support of the application because we've worked with them and resolved the overriding issues, which were traffic and safety concerns relating to that. I know one of the people in opposition today lives behind us. If I can go back to the aerial photograph again. And they have the house is zoned R20, which is located behind our property, and they would like us to do a privacy fence adjacent to our property. The issue that we have is that we actually don't have an adjoining property line with them. There's a light industrial piece and significant trees between us and their property, and for us to fence the back of our property actually I don't think would provide any real benefit to them, and actually would probably be unattractive visually from Shallowford Road. So I sympathize with them. They are the only residential property left in this entire industrial area. This is between the railroad tracks and Canton Road. It's all industrial around there, and that's the only single-family residence left in the area. I sympathize with them. I will tell you that we take security very seriously. Racetrack, as you know, is a locally owned company, third largest privately held company in the state of Georgia, which is headquartered right here in Cobb County. And they take safety for their employees and their customers very seriously. And we will have full monitoring with cameras throughout the property to ensure that it is safely run and secure at all times. If I can go back to the site plan to show you, or the renderings, let me go back to the renderings. You can see this is the newest prototype that Racetrack has developed. We've actually changed the terminology from calling them convenience stores to convenience markets because the interior offerings are significantly different than what you expect to see in a convenience store. And they have done a lot to do, a lot of emphasis on the architecture of the building, varying roof lines, 2 entryways so that it has an attractive entrance on both the front and the side. Different materials, and it is designed to be an attractive building, and it has been very well received, and the interior offerings are dramatically different with yogurt offerings, which I think has been a fan favorite. So we have worked well with the Canton Road neighbors. We worked with the DOT, and they have revised their comments, and we've revised our letter stipulation dated February 10th, and We simply ask that you follow the planning commission, the staff recommendation for approval and the planning commission recommendation for approval of this application. I'll be glad to answer any questions you have. I have my client, Dan Brown, with Racetrack, or Leslie Batcher with Racetrack, can answer any development questions that I cannot answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Proposition, please. Opposition, please.
Yes, I do have that property that's back there. My dad built that property 50 years ago.
Can I have your name, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, Renee Gann.
Thanks.
There was a convenience store down more where I guess it's like the GC is down in that area years ago when I was just a kid. At that time, the store was robbed. They did come through our property. My dad found the gun in the garden. Not saying it's going to happen again, but I would feel better if there was a privacy fence blocking the backside of that building and my property. And yes, there is not touching there, but the distance is probably less than the length of this room here. So it's not like it's a huge area of what it may look on the screen. Also, just of having stragglers coming from the backside of the property into my backyard. That I know I can't fight corporate, but I would like to have privacy fence divide the two.
Thank you. Thank you. Next speaker. Any other opposition for Z95? Thank you. Public hearing is closed. Commissioner Burrow?
Thank you. Mr. Huff, can you come up to the podium, please? I see where there's a little strip of the LI that borders Ms. Gann's property. It is the R20, I believe it's a higher elevation
Yes.
than the racetrack because
Yeah.
it slopes down, but I mean, I know you can't do anything on the LI because that's not your property, but there is a pretty thick tree buffer there. And I can't really address that at this hearing because it's not in question. And I know we talked about security cameras, and I know you will have those all throughout the property, but specifically on this side of the building to protect the one residential here.
Yes, we will have security cameras that monitor all angles from the building, front and back and side. Additionally, there is probably 40 feet of LI between our property and that property, but when you get onto our property, there's a 30-foot buffer, and then we're going to have a 2-to-1 slope coming down to our property. So there's going to be significant trees between us and that property and a grade differential that will help ensure that.
And one other question, if you did have a fence on your side of the property line, would you have to remove some of those trees to put that in, and would that affect the visibility and the buffer area?
Yes, if we put a tree like on the property line, then we would be removing significant underbrush as we put that fence in. If we move the fence down the hill closer to our property, then you're creating a very long fence that would be unattractive from Shallowford Road, and I don't think would really be benefiting anybody.
It is heavily wooded in that area, but does anybody else have any suggestions or comments that? Okay,
I mean,
well,
I don't, personally, putting a fence in the LI is, I mean, why do we usually put fences in? If someone's gonna, if the concern is about safety, the fence is not gonna stop anybody. I don't believe so. I don't know that destroying the greenery for the maintenance and the ongoing, the installation and the ongoing maintenance is going to outweigh the potential risk.
and the
Sorry.
R20 is secured. By a fence.
So
So-
I wouldn't, I empathize, like as the counselor mentioned, I empathize with the fact that there's an R20 in the middle of all this LI. But there's a point where I think it gets overbearing or non-productive in terms of meaningful results by adding stipulations. My experience with these folks in the racetrack in the past is their security is tight, extremely tight, not only for the safety of their employees, but they want to make sure that their customers have a perfect, best of their ability experience, so they'll continue to come back. And any rumors that may exist to the contrary would be detrimental to the business. So security and safety of the pedestrian, or for the customers and the employees, is going to be paramount for them, and actually will help, I think, improve safety in the area holistically. Commissioner Weatherford, you had a comment?
Just one, most of the time when we do some of these zonings and things, we strive to get a buffer between this and residential or adjoining properties. Here we have a natural buffer that I think we always try to get and to have. So I see no problem with applicant as it's presented, and I agree with the chairman about having dealt with racetrack over the years. Their security and the way they run their stores is second to none, so I have no issues with it as presented.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just tell staff, John, I would tell your staff that when they do, before they get ready to do, when they do the site inspections for the grading permit, just make sure the tree stave is clearly marked. And I think everything should be fine. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Commissioner Burrow?
Excuse me,
Yes.
Commissioner Burrow.
That's-
Excuse me, Chairman. I have a question for clarification. You provided the residential property is fully enclosed?
There's a fence on the back border, yes. It's my, yeah, right. The R20 does have a fence,
Okay, and is the fence facing where the racetrack is?
the back of the
part-
property,
Yeah, the
yes.
back line, okay.
And the 40-foot strip of trees is part of the LI, not part of the property that we're hearing right now. So they can't do any, I mean, that can't be disturbed.
what you're
We
saying.
can't. And the 30-foot buffer on the racetrack side where the cursor is, that 30-foot buffer will remain wooded,
Okay.
natural buffer as
Okay.
well.
I see.
Any other comments? Commissioner?
Thank you. Okay, I think with the comments that we've just heard, I'm ready to make a motion. I would like to make a motion that we approve Z95, subject to stipulator dated February 10th, 2016. The revised staff recommendations, specifically DOT comments from February 11th, that were submitted to the clerk, but I can give you another copy if you need it. You have it. And specifically addressed in there are the decel lanes on Shallowford and Canton. Shallowford Road access is a right-in, right-out only. No left out turning onto Canton Road driveway, but there is a left turn in access, but no left out on Canton Road. And the final site plan to be approved by the district commissioner, and security cameras throughout the property, but specifically on the side of the building bordering the R20 property, and all staff and planning commission comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict.
And just for the record, we're rezoning it to the NRC category.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'll
Yes.
second the motion. Any other comments? Call the question, motion carries 4-0. Sup 9, please.
SLUP 9 of 2015, Municipal Communications LLC, request a special land use permit for the purpose of a telecommunications facility in land lot 18 of the 20th District. The property is located on the west side of Wade Green Road, south of Clearview Drive. The applicant's representative is present. Is there anyone here opposed to SLUP 9? Please keep your hands raised.
Counselor, so the commissioners just indicated to me in the prior case that she forgot to add as a stipulation to follow the Canton Road guidelines. How do we go about adding that to that motion at this point?
If there's consent by the board, it could just be added.
We lost one of our district commissioners, so let's take that up as soon as she gets back, assuming she comes back. What do you have there in opposition? Thank you.
All those wishing to address the board, please come forward to be sworn in.
Chairman, I believe you need to take that action prior to moving on to the next
Okay.
item.
So, Ms. Allen, if you, pardon me? I don't know where she went, so let's take a,
Take a vote.
And we need Parks back in here too. Well,
is she outside?
I don't see her.
Hey, folks, just as a reminder, for this upcoming case we're about to hear, there is 10 minutes for the folks, the applicant to present, and then there is 10 minutes for opposition. I saw a lot of folks get up. You're going to want to make sure that your comments are expressed within that 10-minute. All folks are welcome to speak, but we want to make sure that that we keep within that 10-minute limit, okay? So please make sure you coordinate that to your best ability. Just keep it while you're away. Ms. Burrow brought forward a observation that she had forgotten to include as a stipulation to follow the Canton Road guidelines in that prior case we just heard, specifically Z95. Counselor has advised us that with the full consent of the board, we can add that at this point, that a stipulation be that the applicant follow the Canton Road guidelines. Are you in concurrence with that?
Yes, I am.
Do I need a formal motion to that effect, or do you got acclamation that we have a,
It should be amended.
would you amend your motion?
Yeah, I would like to amend my motion to include that the applicant will follow the Canton Road guidelines and that they have agreed to be a part of the pedestrian streetlight district, and they have the proper affidavit and information on that.
Thank you. Being the original second, I'll second that motion. Any other comments? Call the question. That motion carries 4-0. Thank you. SLUP 9, please.
Thank you.
Ms. Smith.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Ellen Smith with Holton A. Zatkoff and Wasserman, 100 Galleria Parkway, Suite 1800, Atlanta, Georgia. I have the pleasure of representing the applicant, Municipal Communications, with respect to this matter. Joining me this morning is Peter Corey, the CEO of Municipal Communications, John Throckmorton, Clay Brogdon with Southern Link, and my law partner, Jim Nay. Just to give you a little bit of background, the applicant has leased 3,600 square feet of property from the Wildwood Baptist Church. There is a designated leased area, and outside of that 3,600 square feet, the applicant has no rights to the church's property. The church is designated, and the property is designated as public/institutional in the county's future land use map. It's surrounded entirely by low-density residential. The only nearby property that does not have the LDR designation is Pittner Elementary School. The school was approached and turned down the opportunity to have the tower placed on the school's property. There are no other properties within Southern Link's search area showing the carrier's desired location that needs, or meeting the carrier's desired needs that are zoned or designated non-residential. We seek a SLUP for a wireless telecommunications facility because this SLUP complies with every single zoning ordinance requirement and meets or exceeds all setbacks. We respectfully request approval of this application. This application was filed last August, originally scheduled to come before you in November, but it was tabled to allow for multiple community meetings, another balloon test, to allow time for the county's RF consultant to review the applicant's technical information. The applicant complied with county notice requirements by timely posting signs and mailing notices to everyone within 1,000 feet of the property. Evidence of our compliance is in the record before you, Originally, we sought to put in a tower that was 190 feet, and it was a monopole. To ensure that the facility is the least intrusive means for providing wireless services, applicant amended its SLUP request significantly, specifically to address visual concerns. The first change to the request is to reduce the height of the tower to 165 feet, and the second is that we changed the design of the monopole to a monopine, right, to look like a tree. There's an example up on your video monitor or television screen to show you what an example of an existing facility in Cobb County, Hurt Road Baptist Church. The design of the facility will look like this one. The Planning Commission directed us to submit engineered design drawings for this tower that showed the branches going all the way down. We did that last Tuesday. The full engineered report is part of your staff's file on this project. We provided multiple affidavits and coverage maps from Southern Link's radio frequency engineer, but also from T-Mobile and from Verizon. So there are 3 carriers who are interested and need this site, not just one. Collectively, these evidence a significant gap in wireless coverage. The county's consultant, who is here today, has reviewed this technical information and confirmed that the facility is needed. He can answer any other technical questions, but respectfully, I would say to you, we've complied with all of the county's requirements to show that there's a need for this tower in this location. There was one technical note. There were drive tests. Residents went out, they bought a Southern Link phone, and they did tests over a couple of days to show that they could make calls and receive texts. The problem with those is that, number one, the handset that they bought is not using the wireless network that Southern Link is deploying. Southern Link is deploying a new network. I am not a radio frequency engineer, but the handset that was used is used for IDEN networks, not LTE networks. The LTE network is not turned on, so there's no way for a consumer to test that network or the viability of that network right now. Again, you can hear more from your own consultant, but just wanted to give you that. The zoning ordinance requires that you review at least 15 factors when you consider a SLUP request, whether it's a tower or something else. We've submitted written responses to that analysis. Your staff has done that analysis as well. And applying those 15 guideposts to this application shows that the application should be approved. I won't go through all of them, but I do want to highlight just 2. One is with respect to property values. The tower will not adversely impact area property values. Staff's analysis confirmed that this is historically true throughout the county where there are cell towers. We have submitted an appraisal from Greystone Valuation Services confirming that is true for this particular tower on this particular site. But we also present to you an analysis of the impact of the nearest 2 towers. Both of these nearest 2 towers are within 1 mile of the facility. They are both located in residential areas similar to this site. In every single case, the value of the home went up at some point after the tower was built. In no case has it fallen below the value the homes held prior to the time the tower was built. And in 5 of those 6 homes are closer than or the same distance to the constructed non-stealth monopole towers than the closest residents to this site. So I just want to give you that information so that you have it with respect to property values. Your staff, outside consultant, and planning commission have all recommended approval of this application. All of the proposed conditions that are included in the staff's report are acceptable to the applicant but one. And that is condition number 3 at the end provides that the applicant will move the tower 300 to 400 feet due east. This ties to one of the 15 factors that you're to consider, and that is visual impact of the tower. We've submitted a number of photo simulations showing what the tower will look like at various distances around the tower if the tower is built. This photo sim is showing the location of the tower as it is originally proposed by the applicant on the 3,600 square foot site that it's leased from the church. The visual impact of this tower is minimal. Will you see a cell tower? Yes, you will. It's not going to be invisible. We can't make a 165-foot structure or 120-foot structure or 195-foot structure invisible. It will be visible. The question is it sited so that it mitigates to the greatest extent possible the visual impact? And I submit to you that keeping it at its proposed location does just that. This is a Google Earth view with the proposed tower shown with a little white circle and the initials TWR. That's the proposed site. If you move the tower 300 to 400 feet east, you are moving it away from one set of neighbors, closer to Wade Green Road, closer to a different set of neighbors. You're moving it along the same line of sight distance, and you're not doing anything to make the tower invisible. You're not. Someone will still see it. The question is not, is it invisible? The question is it located where it is as least visible as possible? Is it designed to be as least visible as possible? The reduction in height, the change of the design of the tower accomplish those goals while balancing other property owner interests. The requirement to move the tower 300 to 400 feet east is arbitrary and capricious as a proposed condition. The county has a track record of approving towers on similarly situated properties with significantly shorter setbacks. An example is the Hurt Road Baptist Church, the picture I showed you very first. That tower was built by Municipal Communications. In the last 5 years in the county, there have been 11 monopoles between 150 and 180 feet built in Cobb County on residentially zoned properties. All 11 have a residence within 400 feet. 8 of the 11 have a residence within 300 feet, which is closer than ours, which is 338 feet to the nearest off-site residence. In fact, this site has a greater existing tree buffer than that site on Hurt Road, at Hurt Road Baptist Church. Moreover, we have no legal right to comply with this proposed request. We have a lease. That lease is for a 3,600 square feet portion of the church's property. The church has not granted us any opportunity to move the tower, and we've been told they will not. So in effect, requiring this condition and approving an application with this condition is in effect a denial of the application. The church wants to preserve the balance of its property to the greatest extent possible, to preserve opportunity for future church growth and maintain long-term viability of its property. The proposed site is right next to an existing detention facility. That won't be developed. If the tower is moved 300 to 400 feet, it puts it within a prime location on the church's property for future development. You're essentially punishing the church for having unimproved property to the extent that they have no choice but to let it remain that way. No neighbor has requested this move. Before the Planning Commission, they said that requirement, that condition, would not help them at all. We respectfully request you approve this application without the condition to move the tower. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Opposition, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Don Hepp, and I'm a resident of Clearwater Estates. I live back behind the church, near the most affected properties. We've submitted 2 memorandums in opposition to SLUP 9. We hope you've had the time to read and review these. If not, please do so before your decision is made final. During the zoning meeting, we heard comments concerning SLUP 9 from the applicant. Among these, this is designed to cover residential in-building service. Southern Link phones are not available for this system. We meet or exceed all setback requirements. Setbacks could not be met on commercial sites. No other sites have been found. Provision of wireless service has to be balanced with visual impact. We ask wireless service to whom? This is not dependent on any big customer base. True, initially there's only one customer, the Southern Company itself. Also, again, we saw stated in the SLUP applications, the statement, but the goal of this site is to serve the residential community in this area of Way Green, not the commercial areas that lie to the south closer to I-75, to serve the residential community. Site location. The applicant has submitted an inventory of towers within a 3-mile radius, and they have documented why they can't use them. They went to their first site of choice, Pittner Elementary, with a proposed 280-foot tower. It was denied, we're told. We've not seen any documentation. Why? When denied, they went to their second choice, Wildwood Baptist Church, with a 190-foot proposal. We've not seen any lease on this property. We are told by the pastor nothing had been signed until this decision was made. Excuse was setbacks on commercial plots. If so, where's the documentation? What is this about? This is the last propagation map submitted. It's a model for what-if use. As these towers are built, allowances are made to allow for final tuning of the coverage area by tilting, rotating the antennas. The final outcome can look significantly different. Here we're looking at the Wildwood property site, an additional antenna on an existing tower at I-575. The area of coverage appears to have grown much larger than just the Wildwood Church neighborhood. This is still theoretical data. Since this is a model, most serious providers will provide additional real-world data, drop call statistics, blocking call statistics, accessibility statistics, proof of performance, proof of actual capacity, and proof of capacity overuse. You've seen none of this because it cannot be provided. It is not what this SLUP is about. What is it about? Again, the goal stated is to provide a residential community with cell service. The goal for this site, again, serve residential communities. That does not match what we have found. Newswires from Southern Link's website and trade publications tell us a different story. Southern Link has actually announced a 4G LTE network to cover the needs of its largest customer, the Southern Company Electric Utilities, with a capacity to serve the most crucial needs of area businesses and government, not residential. A system offering network encryption over the air and from Southern Link's towers to the network's core data centers, a level of security not commonly offered by wireless carriers, again, not residential. Fixed data services, not voice, will be supplied to all Southern companies by 2018. What does this mean? It means that no voice on this tower until 2019 at the earliest, and then only mission critical, as Southern Links abandons its IDEN network in the year 2020. Notice how these sites are lining up along the interstates. It is the same in other parts of Atlanta. The idea is to provide mission critical data and voice to Southern Company and other governmental agencies, utilities, and contractors in the main arteries of this city. This is used for secure data transmission of voice and data even during storms and natural disasters. This is not a service for residential users. We're asking you to deny SLUP 19 because it is not needed in our residential neighborhoods. We've proven coverage. We have been misled and deceived as to what it really is. This is not improvement to streaming videos on our cell phones. Other areas are available for construction of Southern Link's new network, but have not been sought. Within a half-mile radius of this location, there is a property owner who wants to sell, who wants to lease. Many questions on this SLUP are unanswered and undocumented. We are simply a residential neighborhood in the way of a corporation building a network primarily for internal use. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, please.
My name is Dave Griffith. I'm the president and CEO of Relocal Move and Relocal Home, a local real estate company and national relocation company. We are representing today two different initiatives. One is for the 400 residents in the local half-mile area that are opposed to this, to SLUP 9. And the second is on behalf of Vince Williams and two of his neighbors who back directly up to this tower. We're going to talk to both filings. We went to the 563 homeowners in the local area. We talked to over 55% of them. I'm sure that you guys would like to have 55% turnout, when people come to vote. We talked to a lot of these folks. over 79% of them oppose this slope. So what we find is that SLUP 9 is really a catastrophe, for our area. Your job as commissioners, I'm sure, is to look at this thing very narrowly. Your job is hard. You have to look at both sides of this situation. But the burden of proof is on the applicant, it's not on us. The applicant has failed to factually support many of its assertions with written documentation, as we have noted in our written request to deny, and the applicant keeps changing their assertions. What is quiet enjoyment? Let me ask a question. Are there cell towers anywhere in the Logan Road area of Cobb County, or the Pebble Creek Road area of Cobb County, Goldfinch Circle, Silver Creek Crossing, or Bent Creek Drive? Quiet enjoyment is more than just noise. It's also visual. I just want to ask you to consider those things. Doesn't the Clearwater Estates community and the Wade Green Road community deserve the same quiet enjoyment? We provided the board substantial written evidence supporting our position that property values will be adversely affected. Now, I saw an interesting slide, by the counselor. I'd like to put that one back up if I can. It's this one. From Zillow, can you put it on the screen, please? We affectionately in the industry, and by the way, after 30 years in the real estate business and over 1,500 transactions, I think I know what I'm talking about. We affectionately refer to Zillow in the industry as Xanax, because anytime we show up at someone's house and they mention the value on Zillow, it causes us a lot of heartburn. So I'm looking at this thing, and I just want you to refer to it as well. The tower located in the top section was built in 2010. On the bottom section, it was built in 2009. Does anybody remember 2009 and 2010 with regard to the latest real estate recession? That was the bottom. That was the trough. Between 2007-8 at the peak and 2009-10-11 at the bottom, we saw a 40% property value decline just in Cobb County alone. Now they're saying the highest value since then, since 2009 and 2010, shows an increase. You guys, I could buy a house and I could build a nuclear power plant behind it in 2009, 2010, and by 2014 or 15, the value would have gone up. It's called the market. It has nothing to do with a cell tower increasing value. Can we take that down, please? As I said, I've been in the business for 30 years. My appraisers, they do, I asked them yesterday, give me an idea, what do you discount when you see a utility pole in the backyard? 10 to 15% right off the bat. For 4 years, I sold Freddie Mac foreclosures in Cobb County. Over 400 of them I closed during that time. Fannie and Freddie have a 10 to 15% automatic reduction that they tell us to give them as soon as we're trying to price a property. Yes, property values are impacted. I'm going to ask you a simple question. Well, let me give it to you as an example. I've showed over 10,000 homes in my career. I have never had a homeowner walk into the backyard, see a utility pole, and say, awesome, where do I sign?
Thank you, sir. Your time has expired.
Opposition, Mr. Peterson explained to us in the beginning of the meeting that we had 10 minutes for opposition. I reiterated it.
That's fine.
A few minutes ago.
I think I got my point.
I think you did too, but there's a young lady behind you, I'm assuming is not there for props, correct?
Hers takes about 30 seconds. Can we
Okay,
give her
then
some
I'm going to
grace?
allow it. I'm going to allow it. I'm going to
Thank
allow
you,
her to come forward and make her statements. Conversely, though, I'll let the applicant respond in kind to the additional time. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
my name is Elaine Williams. I live at 1531 Brookshire Drive. As one of the homeowners closest to the tower, and in direct line of view from all areas in our yard, we are the most impacted by the installation of this tower. The pastor's response to verbal and written pleas to him to change his mind has always been, "I'm leaving the decision in the hands of Cobb County Commissioners." That being the case, if the commissioners agree that the cell tower must be located on the property of Wildwood Baptist Church, despite all the evidence to the contrary, specifically no written proof of the vetting of commercial areas within the 3-mile radius as required, we ask that you uphold your staff recommendations by requiring the tower be located 300 to 400 feet to the east. We don't agree that this tower should be located on this property, and we still ask for denial. But if you feel you must approve it, at least don't make us have to look at it every time we walk out of our house.
Very good, thank you. Ms. Smith, I can give you have about a minute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I won't take that long. Just to give you, back to the Zillow-Zanac report, the purpose of giving you the Zillow comparison is not to say that the tower increased the property value. It is to show you that there was not a further decrease in the property values, which is what the concern has been stated. More importantly, we didn't just rely on Zillow. We did have an appraiser come out and appraise this tower on this property, and his report conclusively demonstrates that there is no adverse impact on area property values. So I just want to let you hear that. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Public hearing is closed. Commissioner Burrow, would you lead our conversation, please?
Yes, thank you. Well, we've heard a lot today and over the last few months, and I do have some comments that I'd like to make prior to asking Mr. Edwards from Cityscape to come forward. But I'd first like to thank our staff, zoning manager, Mr. Peterson, planning commissioner, Christy Trombetti, county attorney, Debbie Blair, for all their assistance on this matter and this process. And Mr. Edwards, of course, from Cityscape, our independent outside consultant. I'd also like to thank Municipal Communications, Mr. Corey, counselors, Ms. Smith and Mr. Nay, for allowing the community meetings at the church, for site visits, multiple site visits, the balloon test and so forth, and to the community, the Wade Green neighbors, Clearwater Estates, and all of your engagement and participation in this process. And I think at the Planning Commission there were 18 who attended in opposition from the Wade Green communities, and today there, I believe 28 were counted. So it shows that you are very much engaged in the process, and we do appreciate your comments. I have 2 huge accordion folders of information that have come through on this case that I'm about cross-sided reading. But it's good reading material, and it shows that you are not only engaged but also doing your research and homework on this particular issue. I know that additional information was submitted today for the record, and that will be filed as well. So I'd like to just kind of go through some points that I'd like to make. Also, on October 1st, we had a community meeting at Wildwood Baptist Church. There were 40 residents in attendance. On December 10th, we had a second meeting with approximately 35 attendees. And then last week, on February 9th, I met with about 8 representatives from Clearwater Estates here at the office. The other two were at the church, the community meetings. A balloon test was held on October 7th, and different neighbors came by, and Dana Johnson and I rode through the Clearwater subdivision and across the street at the other subdivisions to get a visual effect, and that was at the original proposed 190 feet height. So that was done as well back in October. So we have had a lot of discussion and meetings and a lot of emails and a lot of information submitted for all the commissioners to review. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Edwards to come to the podium. Thank you, Mr. Edwards, for being here today, and I do have a few questions that I'd like you to address.
Excuse me, would
if
you
you
state
will.
your name
I'm sorry.
and who you're with for the record, please?
Jonathan Edwards and Cityscape Consultants.
Thank you.
I guess your position on this is when we have a cell tower application, your company or you specifically as a certified engineer looks at the area to make sure that the coverage is warranted and needed in that specific area. So I'd kind of like for you to address that. Is the coverage warranted? Did the applicant do their due diligence with their search with the 21 sites that were submitted that were not, did not meet the specifications for this? And then also give us, I guess, the requirement of the 4,500 feet from the nearest cell tower and the radius. Can you kind of address that to explain to us?
Yes, we look at the application and determine whether or not this site is justified based on what is submitted and the current coverage maps that the applicant will provide. If that information is not provided, we always go back and ask for it because it's part of the justification for what is needed. In our report of November 12th, we did state that we believe that it is justified and that there is a substantial gap and that the applicant would need another site in this general area to be able to facilitate their service. The application that they provided was intended to serve the residential areas about the property, and their search area, as they have defined, has to be located within this tight ring or an area. I believe they've given a half-mile radius to serve this area. If they were to shift it down to the interstate or up towards Highway 92 to the existing towers that are in the area, they would lose the goal of serving this area because the coverage of the tower is essentially around the tower. So moving it a mile or so away is going to shift the coverage away and deplete, impede the goal of their service.
So there is, would you say there is a significant gap?
Yes.
For coverage?
Yes, we do. I don't know if it was stated in here. We just say there's a gap, but I know that it's been brought up. If it has to be considered a substantial gap, and based on the coverage maps we have seen, there is a substantial gap in their service from what they proposed.
Okay. Also, on the testing for the phone system, can you kind of address the 3 points that have to be covered and why you feel that the residents' test was not scientific or didn't cover the interior, exterior, and vehicle calls? Can you address that?
Well, for the test to be conclusive, there's a few things that are factors that can sway the test or that can not give you a conclusive answer. One thing is to consider whether the tests were done indoor or outdoor. Signal levels have to be stronger to get into the and into the houses. You'll see a coverage map typically will have three colors, three different services. One signal strength, the strongest, is for indoor. One would be for in vehicle coverage and driving around your vehicles, and then one would be strictly outdoor. And the reason is that you need more signal to get inside the homes. I believe the tests submitted for Southern Link were all listed to be outdoors, so they would be a best case situation. They would not be really representative of what the signal would be inside of a structure of any type. That's one point. Another point is that they were done in this past fall, and that's in the wintertime when the trees are very thin and do not have leaves on them. Leaves and the moisture in the leaves are a large factor in the attenuation of the signal, and they will significantly knock down the signal, reduce the signal. So the summertime you'll have more, I would guess, degradation of the signal due to the tree growth and the leaf and the foliage. And the third point that we brought up was the time of day. As the network is taxed by capacity, which would be during the peak rush hour times, that's when you're going to see the least amount of reliability in the system. And I believe the times were around 4 o'clock hour, which is early in the rush hour, but not quite the heavy part of it. So you're not looking at a worst case. When you do a test, you want to make sure you consider the worst case in all these situations. That's kind of how the coverage maps are done. They're theoretical, but they are a reliable signal. While they may show coverage, they are going to show you a situation that's going to be reliable. When you think that it may be not accurate to what the real world is, it really is a reliable issue of what your baseline is, and that's how the industry standard is. So you need to make sure that when you do a test like this, that you incorporate different environmental aspects, and then the equipment you're using for a phone itself may not be a piece of test equipment. It could be a consumer device that may not be calibrated, and it may not be a perfectly usable piece of equipment.
Okay.
Oh, and if I can add, and separate from what I had determined, Ms. Smith has said that also that their network that they're actually deploying is not operational today. So anything that you would test today is not what they're proposing to build. So that kind of almost makes the whole test completely irrelevant for the point of what they're trying to implement.
Okay, so in your opinion, is the cell tower for primarily Southern Link commercial use, or would the 3 additional co-locators provide the residential service, or will it cover both?
Well, I can't talk to who their target audience is. I saw the information about internal customers, but if they wanted to serve the interstates and the highways, I believe to the south, we had looked at down in the shopping centers down there near the interstate, there are 2 existing towers down there. If they wanted to serve the interstate, then they would operate from one of those towers. This area being about a mile north of the interstate is not really the preferred location to serve the highway. The location of this tower is primarily to serve these residential areas from an RF standpoint. That it's centered within them. It's intended to serve that area. We did see support from another applicant, a wireless applicant, to use this same site for capacity issues. They have a little bit better coverage in the area, but they have issues with the amount of calls being used. And that shows that the residential area is a heavily used area and that they need this site as well. So my opinion is that this tower for this location is intended primarily to serve these residential areas within the surrounding areas of the tower itself.
Okay. And one more question. I'd like you to talk about the 2 locations, the proposed location and the 300 feet to the east, as far as visibility, and do you think it would harm the applicant's availability to provide coverage for that area, moving at 300 feet?
Well, from an RF standpoint, an engineering standpoint, I do not see any change from the 2 locations in how it will serve the customers in the area, as long as you maintain the effective height. And what I mean by that is the antennas have to be above the tree line. And if you move into the trees, they have to remain above the tree line, which they will if you keep the same height. And you can't adjust the height based on the ground elevation. If you put a tower on a hill, you can shorten the tower as long as your overall height stays the same to that general area. So if the ground elevation per se were to go or increase 10 feet in that wooded area, you could reduce the tower 10 feet as long as you didn't come into the trees. But in our studies, we had already made sure that the minimum height requested for the bottom co-locator was still above the trees in that area. So I don't see a material difference in the coverage for that site move. And you asked me about the
visibility.
Well, I think
I mean, moving at 300 feet, will that affect the visibility from the closest neighbors?
Well,
I mean, I know it's going to go, it's a higher elevation at the 300 feet location, but
if you move into the tree area, the trees would, of course, shield the portion of the tower that's in the trees. You're still going to have the portion that's above it. If we assume tree heights are 80 feet and you have another 80 feet above it, you'd have the portion if you put it in the trees. Now, there has to be some clearing out by the applicant or to put in the
base.
pathway and the fencing. So you're going to lose some trees wherever they put those in, but the idea was to shield it from the trees. If you're moving away from the homes 300 feet, then, it's not really an engineering opinion, but you're going to probably reduce the visibility because you're moving further away. Of course, you're moving towards others, so that's kind of more of an opinion for you to assess. But I don't see an issue from an engineering standpoint or a radio standpoint that you would lose the coverage will not change at all as long as you maintain that effective height, which I believe the recommendation was to maintain a certain height above mean sea level, which is to take into consideration the ground change.
okay. That's all I had. Does anybody else have? I'm sorry, that's your job.
Thank you.
Ms. Cupid.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Excuse me, sir, I have an additional question regarding the new LTE technology and how that impacts the analysis done. You provided that the reports don't necessarily reflect the coverage that would be required from this new technology. Can you expand a little bit on that?
So the applicant is designing a network based on a newer technology, which is pretty common with some of the major providers, but it's new to their system. So their coverage maps show when they show the existing sites, we use that as a basis to determine what is needed to get contiguous coverage to talk to those other sites. In other words, if you're going from one tower, if you're in your phone and you're going from one site to another, you need to have continuous service or you'll drop that call. So whether or not they are on the air or not, or actually operating, we don't look at that to know. We have to use that as a background to understand. So the fact that they're providing this, whether it's existing or not, I can't speak to whether those are turned on in the other locations or not. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But it's part of the entire network. So if they plan to turn it on all at one time, this is part of a needed piece of the puzzle to get this system to be reliable.
Okay. And follow up, with this update in technology to LTE, is there a concern regarding obsolescence that there would need to be another tower if this technology is no longer needed, or could the same pole or same tower be utilized if that technology were to change?
No, the pole should have the ability to handle up to 3 other users below the existing, and we don't foresee the technology changing to where this pole become obsolete. We believe that this pole was designed tall enough to support any future technologies as far as what we know now. So I don't see any reason to have another tower on this piece of property in any time that I can even foresee.
Okay.
As one of the things that we would consider is when we do reports for counties such as yourself, we make sure that there's room for co-locators on it as well. We wouldn't want to lower the tower all the way down to where only one antenna could be on there and then require another tower next to it to support, say, a Verizon or an AT&T. We leave it tall enough to allow 10 feet for each antenna so they can have the 3 to 4. The idea is to minimize the amount of towers. Even if it requires an extra 30 or 40 feet of height, it's better to have the one tower from most ordinances than to have 2 or 3 next to each other that are 20 feet shorter.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Edwards? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioner?
Just a few more points that I'd like to make before I make a motion. Originally, this proposal was for a 190-foot monopole tower, and the client has since agreed to lower it by 15% to 165 feet, and has agreed to make the tower a monopine instead of a monopole. I appreciate Mr. Edwards being here for both the Planning Commission and today's meeting. Cityscape is a nationwide company with well-sounded and expert research. And as you heard, the tower is for calls and data, and the need coverage area, there is a gap, and the need is warranted. The coverage includes personal and business calls. The tower will address all needs and doesn't really differentiate what type of call is coming through. We do have submitted a list of 21 alternative sites for the tower from the applicant. Cell towers, the effect on the market value of properties is really subjective. Their locations in East Cobb, the most prominent in my mind is Sweat Mountain, and it looks like a porcupine of antennas.
That's the one near Bent Creek Drive.
Yeah, and near where I live too. It is in District 3, but I mean, the homes around there are $1 million homes and some more. But I mean, it does depend on, the buyer, and it's subjective, and we can't really say that it definitely impacts one way or the other. And there are cases where it does affect. The cell tower's proposed location is 338 feet from the closest house and 220 feet to the closest property line. So none of the homes are within the fall zone. In my 5 years on this board, I don't recall a cell tower that has met all the setback and distance requirements without any variance requests, with the exception of one in Commissioner Cupid's district that is on approximately 100 acres of residential property and has a lake surrounding it. So, and this tower is on 34 acres plus. In addition, the tower exceeds the fall zone requirements by 18%. The applicant has addressed and met all the criteria set forth in Cobb Code Section 134-273 and Section 134-37. I believe Planning Commissioner Trombetti mentioned at the Planning Commission hearing that 50% of the cell towers that have come before the board are residentially zoned. Those special land use permits for cell towers do not change the zoning or the land use or set a commercial precedent. This zoning will remain R20 and it will not become commercial. Denial would be considered if the applicant did not establish a significant gap, if it did not meet the requirements, and if it were located in a subdivision. This tower is warranted, it does meet the requirements, and it's not located in a subdivision. There are a couple of factors that I guess we need to take into consideration. Preserving the neighborhood and the aesthetic concerns of the folks closest to the property. Moving the tower 300 feet would reduce the visibility of the neighbors and that the neighbors have of the site, and reduce the line of sight and move the tower closer to the right-of-way. To me, this move would help preserve the neighborhood and address some of the aesthetic concerns that the neighbors have. This being a 40-plus-year-old neighborhood with several generations and wooded area, larger lots than most in the area. I think that would address that. So with those comments, unless there are any other comments, I'd
Go ahead and make
ready.
a motion.
Pardon?
Go ahead and make a motion.
Okay. I would like to make a motion that we approve SLUP 9 zoning subject to relocation of the tower, proposed tower 300 feet east to the location specified by staff, which will help address preservation of the neighborhood and aesthetic concerns and reduce the line of sight and visibility of the tower. Number 2, if the tower is not built within 12 months from today's date, the special land use permit SLUP will expire, and all staff and planning commission comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second by Commissioner Cupid. Any other comments?
Yes, I'd
Commissioner
just like to
Cupid?
add,
Pardon me?
yes, I'm speaking.
I didn't hear you. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
It's okay. I would like to support Commissioner Burrell's analysis, and I can certainly understand the concerns of the neighbors. We had a couple of cell phone tower cases, one of them which was referred during the applicant's remarks. One of them was a stealth tower from the same company. Another one was another tower within a farm which had 100 acres. Both of them had significant opposition. Similar to the work that Commissioner Burrell did, we had meetings with the applicant and with the neighbors. They went outside, did the balloon test, drove around, did their cell phone tests. And what I found overcame a lot of the opposition was the quality of the cell phone tower. If you look at the cell phone tower which is being presented to you today, it is a cell phone tower, but it is not the traditional cell phone tower that we typically see on the side of the interstate that looks as if it's speaking to somebody in outer space. It's a tall tower with these metallic antlers. I mean, this cell phone tower looks like a tree, and I think is not going to bear that same detriment in your view as you might associate with the traditional cell phone tower. With it being in the church property, with the amount of acreage that it has, I also believe that it is going to be quite distant from the residential properties, and it will impact your view. I'm not going to deny that. You will notice that it's there, but it's not going to have the same detriment of view, again, as I shared, as some of the typical cell phone towers. And with that, in addition to the analysis that was provided by the engineer for the cell phone tower assessment organization, I can't recall the name right now, I think it's Cityscape. I support your motion.
Thank you. And again, thank you to staff, county attorney's office, and the neighbors and the applicant for all the hard work and participation and research done on this. Thank you. We have a
Yep.
Go ahead. I was just saying I'm through.
Thank you.
We have a motion.
I got that sitting right next to you. We have a motion and a second. Any other comments, Commissioner Weatherford?
Whoops. Thought you were calling a question.
Thank you. Again, I echo Commissioner Burrell and Mr. Cupid's comments and appreciate all involved. I fail to see the reason to move it 300 feet. It seems to do nothing actually except change a different view and closer to the road. And unlike some of the speakers referred to at my residence, there is one fairly close to my house, and I did approve it when I was on the city council there. It's not 300 feet, but it is one of these types of towers, and you can barely see it, and it becomes almost invisible after a while. So I support the new technology of the monopine and the fact that it blends into the area, and the fact that other carriers will locate on this will help coverage for every carrier. Typically, there's 2 or 3 on each one of them. I support the tower as it meets some of the best qualifications I've seen in my years of doing this as far as fall zone and impacting of neighbors. And but I really don't see a reason to move it 300 feet, so that's my comments.
Call the question. Motion carries 4-0.
No, he hasn't.
Trust me, 4-0. Next case, well, before we go to the next case, I understand the counselor has showed up for Z2.
Yes, sir. I'll go ahead and reread that to the consent agenda. Rezoning case Z2, Pasta Bella Incorporated, request rezoning from NS to R15 for the purpose of single-family residential in land lot 848 of the 19th District. The property is located on the east side of Reed Drive, north of Hurt Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval of Z2 to the R15 zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Site plan received by the zoning division on November 19, 2015, with the district commissioner approving minor modifications, allowance of variances as stated in the zoning comments contained in the zoning analysis, 35-foot landscape buffer to be installed between the residential and commercial zonings. The buffer should be primarily on the commercial property, with the exception of where the 35 feet is not available given to the new parking on the site plan. In that case, part of the buffer may be installed on the residential lots. Landscaping to be placed around the new parking area. Landscape and buffer plan to be submitted to the county landscape architect for approval. Buffer to be installed within 90 days of the Board of Commissioners' final approval. Fire Department comments and recommendations. Water and Sewer Division comments and recommendations. Stormwater Management Division comments and recommendations. Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. And the owner developer to enter into a development agreement pursuant to OCGA 367113 for dedication of system improvements to mitigate traffic concerns. The applicant's representative is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z2?
Larry, we're good.
Let the record show there's no one opposed.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Commissioner Cupid?
Who said Siri?
I need to repeat all of that because Siri said she didn't get it.
Siri heard it.
Yes. Hi, Larry. Good to see you. I added another stipulation just to reflect what's already in the site plan, confirming that the access to Hurt Road will be closed.
We have been trying to negotiate with the
Name for the record.
I'm sorry, Larry Burke on behalf of the applicant, and I apologize, the individual that's been shepherding this through the process was called out of town on an emergency over the weekend, so I kind of got a last-minute heads up.
Thank you.
We have been trying to work with adjacent property owner to see if there's a way to allow access. Without their approval, we would not be able to do that, though, so.
Okay. The site plan depicts it being closed. Are you still trying to pursue getting
We
the
are.
access off of Hurt Road?
We are, if the adjacent owner will allow it under whatever stipulations might be approved by them, then we would modify the plan, but otherwise it will stand as submitted.
Okay. John, excuse me, I have a request for your input on how that should be reflected in the stipulations.
Instead of closing it, would the board consider final access plan to be approved by Cobb DOT and the district commissioner?
Okay. We can do that, and that way it leave it open as opposed to you having to come back for other business. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Did the clerk get that, or do we? Okay. That'll work. Also, there was some communication up here with respect to the border, the tree border, and just wanted to I guess, address that with you. Part of the tree border that Galt Porter had recommended, who's a planning commissioner for the district, was to block the residential property so there wouldn't be a lot of glare from lights and they'd have some protection between the cars coming in on the parking lot. There was some concern addressing, and the chairman may feel better sharing his concern, but there was some concern addressed because part of that buffer is actually on the residential property and not just on the commercial property.
That's correct.
Can you speak to that?
Yes, and just for the record, the applicant owns the residential property as well as the commercial property we're proposing to. The purpose of this was to separate the two so we could have some additional parking, and yet the residents in those two homes could remain as residential property. We do intend to put up a buffer there, or a landscape the area between the two, so as to try to minimize any impact regarding any glare from headlights or anything of that nature. The business doesn't operate late at night. I think they close at, I want to say 10 o'clock. So it's not going to be a constant thing where there's going to be overnight traffic through that area, even in the event that there is. But there is an intent to put up landscaping between the two and the fence, so that there'll be no ability to intrude, or minimize the ability to intrude on the residential properties.
Okay, that's very good. There was also some discussion about some legal impact with respect to that. Is there going to be an easement that's going to be needed for the residential site, even though it's owned by the same property owner? And is this site, is it planned on being replotted to reflect this buffer?
The residential property would need to be replotted once the zoning request is granted.
Okay.
And so if there is an easement that's needed with regard to any of the, I think there's some issues with respect to the some of the appurtenances and some of the items on that residential property, so there would be a possible need for an easement there.
Okay.
But that would be handled between we would naturally go ahead and submit those and get that all worked out prior to any construction.
Okay. Yes, I'd like to lean towards either you, John, or the county attorney on, should that be reflected in the stipulations?
May I make one suggestion, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners? In order to make this a little bit easier to understand, maybe we should consider striking number 3 altogether and just state that the county landscape architect and the district commissioner approve the final landscaping and buffering plan between the commercial and residential use.
Okay. Okay, I'm comfortable with that, as long as the intention is still to comply with that stated here on the minutes from the Planning Commission.
Yeah, we don't have any problem with that.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Is there a motion in there somewhere? By somebody?
It's still on consent.
It is on consent, Commissioner, but you need to make a motion to approve it, delete number 3, and insert the language that I just suggested for number 3.
Okay. I move that we delete number 3 and add the language that John Peterson suggested with respect to the landscape plan.
Is there a second? Second. Any comments? Call the question. Motion passes 3-1. Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you so much. Have a good
Especially in
day.
short notice, we appreciate it. Z13.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Rezoning case Z13, Quick Trip Corporation, request a rezoning from NRC and LRO to NRC for the purpose of a convenience store at fuel sales in land lot 109 of the 16th District. The property is located at the southeast corner of Woodstock Road and Mabry Road. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z13? Let the record show there's one person opposed. Please come forward and be sworn in.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Calhoun.
All right, thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm Richard Calhoun. I represent Quick Trip Corporation and the owners of the property at issue here. I have with me Jim Clune and Michael Burke to answer any questions that you may have as far as the details of the application. This is a replacement of an existing Quick Trip store that's been there for roughly 20 years. It'll be a new Generation 3 store. This is the same type of store that Quick Trip's building, and actually all their stores will be converted at some point or another. This will be the fourth application that we've seen in the county for one of these new Generation 3 stores. It'll represent a $3.5 to $4 million investment on this property here. All the property is in a neighborhood activity center. All the property that's being rezoned, that's a neighborhood activity center that's been in place for well over 20 years. We're adding to the site to the south, purchasing a half-acre LRO zoned house that's vacant. It was rezoned, I believe, in 1993. So there's been there's an existing history there of both the land use plan and rezonings to other than residential. The property is buffered on the east it will be buffered by the code buffer that's required for NRC next to residential. There's also a heavy wooded area to the east, and we'll have a 6-foot privacy fence just like there is there today, except it'll be extended to cover the additional area of the site. To the south, the property is buffered and the zoning is contained by an additional LRO zoned house that's also in the NAC. So there's a cutoff point there down Mabry Road. We're enlarging the store to 5,858 square feet and adding one pump. And this is for auto diesel, not truck diesel. The existing station has 8 dispensers. The proposed would have 9. We have a stip letter that we submitted to the county on January 13th, and I can go through just to hit some of the high points of that, but we're requesting that it be zoned to the plan that we've submitted. We have dark sky lighting. We've done a photometric study, submitted that to the county, submitted it to the neighbors, not having a car wash. There will be no drive-through unless that's brought through on another business item. Deliveries are restricted. Most of our deliveries are overnight anyway. Otherwise, we would have 1 fuel delivery and 1 vendor delivery per day, and that's it. And then I think probably the most significant concession here is on the northernmost driveway toward Highway 92 on Mabry Road. That's currently a full access driveway. Every turn imaginable is allowed. We also have a southern driveway, but the northern driveway closest to 92, we're stipulating that would be a right-in, right-out only driveway. That's a staff recommendation. That was a planning commission recommendation. And that is to prevent any backups from people coming south on Mabry Road trying to turn left into the store. I also have, for the record, if you wanted an amended stip letter that incorporates our most recent plan, we had some comments from the county arborist that we received over the weekend, and we revised the plan to accommodate those. And that's the plan that's sitting here on the board behind me. So to capsulize it, we agree with all the staff recommendations. The staff has recommended approval. The Planning Commission recommended approval. And so everything that we have in the stipulation letter and in the plan that I have behind me is that is our application. We understand we've met with the opposition, the folks from the Chatsworth subdivision and the Reserve subdivision. We've met 2 times with them, once in December and once in just last couple of weeks ago. They have concerns about the traffic at certain times of the day, and the county, as I understand it, is going to do a traffic study to see if they can alleviate some of that. And again, the contribution that was requested from Quick Trip on this was to limit that driveway closest to 92 to a right-in, right-out only. And the reason that we want to, it's critical to keep that as a right-in, right-out only, is we need for people to be able to come in at both of these entrances, but we don't want to be funneling all of the traffic through the southernmost entrance, because that that would cause traffic to have to go by the front of the store. And one of the things that Quick Trip tries to do, and in fact it's existing in this site here today, is to separate the fuel customer traffic from the convenience store traffic so that you don't have people walking around in cars driving through the lot and creating conflicts with other traffic and pedestrians. So that's very important to us to preserve that right in, right out only at the driveway closest to Mabry Road. The other issue that and actually the staff has done a revised traffic study, and actually the traffic is a tad less now in 2014 than it was in 2006 and 2009, when some of the other rezonings or when some of the other traffic studies were done to support the other rezonings in the area. The other issue that the opposition folks had was the building orientation. They wanted to know if it could be realigned to continue to face Highway 92, and that's just not, we don't have enough room to do that. We don't have enough room to separate the delivery traffic, the fuel traffic, and the store traffic, and keep it all safe within that site. If we were to turn the building to face 92, the alignment of the building and the alignment of the lot are parallel to Mabry Road. As far as the zoning on that goes, we heard some comments from the neighbors that it would interrupt the residential feel of Mabry Road. But again, Mabry Road, the neighborhood activity center in that area extends another 200 feet past the Quick Trip site on Mabry Road. So that's already been a neighborhood activity center in the land use plan for over 20 years. And the LRO zoning, the one house that Quick Trip intends to purchase, and then the one next to that is also zoned LRO. It's a residential structure that extends 100 feet past where Quick Trip is. So there's already been, again, that neighborhood activity center and the zonings in that area have extended down Mabry Road. And when all is said and done, and this development is complete, the Quick Trip site will not extend any further down Mabry Road than the shopping center, the Sandy Plains Village Shopping Center with the movie tavern and the Walmart in it, which is right across the street from us. So in terms of being equal in depth along Mabry Road from the intersection of 92, the Quick Trip and the shopping center across the street they'll be identical. So there's no real encroachment there, and there is an excellent cutoff point in terms of the LRO zoning of the remaining house. And in the landscape plan, and it was recommended to us, and this is something that we've provided in the landscape plan. This is the revised plan. We're going to be planting a lot of street trees along the Mabry Road frontage and some shrubbery, and that will help, I think, ameliorate any commercial look to the site. So if you have any questions, let me know, and if I can't answer them, I'm sure Mr. Clune can.
Let's hear from opposition, Richard, and then if we have any questions, we'll come back to you. Opposition, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Kelly Lamb, and I'm a resident of the Reserve at Mabry subdivision, which lies approximately 600 feet south of QT. Before I proceed, I'd like to mention that yesterday I received David Griffin's comments on QT's landscaping plan, which included the mention of an 11-foot retaining wall. This is the first the community has heard of such a wall, and following the opening comments, I'd like to confirm the accuracy of this information and get additional information regarding such a wall. Our first concern today relates to making improvements to the intersection of Mabry Road and Woodstock. We received the traffic count numbers yesterday, indicating a slight decrease in traffic volume since the last study. This was definitely a surprise to those of us who live in that area because despite those numbers, it was very clear in our community meeting last week with Commissioner Burrell and the DOT that the driving experiences of the residents familiar with this intersection over the past 10 years tell a very different story. One of the questions we had regarding that was whether a visual inspection was performed along with those traffic counts. Our community looks forward to meeting with the DOT to hear their plans and recommendations for improving the safety of this intersection. Our second concern today relates to landscaping. Is that? Okay. Up on the screen up there, this is a picture of the house that's currently next door to the QT. You can see that in the background, and you can see on that property there's quite a bit of mature landscaping. This is on the south side of QT's property where you see those mature trees along with the home on the lot next to QT, and it provides a substantial physical and visual buffer between QT and the adjacent residential area to the south as well as to the west. This is just from a different angle to show you all of these large trees here. This tree, these trees here, all these ones along the fence back here, those are all going to be removed. Keeping in mind that this picture was taken in the wintertime, so in the summer the buffer is even greater. Once the house is demolished and approximately 30 mature trees are removed, the residential character of this area will be grossly and negatively impacted. Considering first this loss of the current significant buffer, second, the scope and nature of QT's expansion, along with their location at the gateway to a residential area, and third, the fact that the storefront will be turning to face Mabry, a residential road, it seems appropriate to install heavy and considerable tall evergreen landscaping, such as a mix of arborvitae, southern magnolias, and Nellie Stevens hollies, to create a visual screen and to maintain the residential complexion of Mabry. In last week's community meeting with Commissioner Burrell and QT representatives, Commissioner Burrell asked QT if they could take out some of the parking along the south side of the plan to allow for buffer landscaping. So right here is the location that we were talking about, taking out some of these parking spaces to allow for some buffer landscaping here on the south side. QT's representatives stated that those spots were necessary for employee parking. However, with approximately 20 parking spaces available at the back of the building, this seems more than adequate for employee parking. In an article in CSP Daily News dated March 26, 2012, Each Generation 3 store employs between 15 and 17 people, according to a report by the Kansas City Business Journal. With a 24-hour operation, one might assume 5 to 6 employees per shift. Yesterday, while at the Powder Springs Gen 3 location, I noticed 6 employees working. The approximately 20 spaces in the rear of the building would be more than adequate parking for approximately 6 employees per shift. With a plan that currently proposes 80 parking spaces at a convenience store, taking out 10 spaces for landscaping improvements certainly seems reasonable. Considering the variances that QT has requested, an increase in the allowable signage, which would include an almost 17-foot tall sign on Mabry Road that was not on the original application, an increase in the allowable impervious surface, and an increase of the store size to almost double the maximum allowed. It seems appropriate and reasonable for QT, the company that states your neighborhood is our neighborhood, to make some small concessions by providing heavy buffer landscaping on the south side of the property to avoid intruding upon the residential qualities consistent with Mabry Road. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other speakers? Seeing and hearing none, the public hearing is closed. Commissioner Burrow.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank Ms. Lamb and the community, Chatsworth and the Reserve and Winchester for participating in this process as well. And of course, the applicant, QT, that is present today, and their attorney, Mr. Calhoun, for allowing us to have several meetings as well on this particular case. There is a lot of traffic at 92 and Mabry Road, as most of you that travel that area know on a daily basis. And for several years, the shopping center across Mabry Road on the opposite corner, the NRC, has recently in the last few years become active again. And, you know, when it was closed, I know that helped with the traffic counts, but now it's going full force as well. So at our meeting last week with the neighborhood, we had we had about 27 people in attendance, 28, and we had some very good comments. We went over the traffic counts and the crash data, and we noticed that the county numbers were from back before the Walmart Neighborhood Market and Movie Tavern were open. So Jane Strickland, who is not with us today, she's on vacation, but Fred Bentley is here representing Cobb DOT. She submitted the traffic counts from Georgia DOT that were just done in 2014. And as Mr. Calhoun referenced, they are slightly decreased from the 2009 reports that we had from the county. However, we are going to continue to look at that intersection. Our traffic operations group will be monitoring this and observing on site at this intersection to look at ways that we can improve that. We're also, Brooke Martin from DOT is going to look at the signal timing for the intersection, especially during off-peak times and on the weekends, because we heard a lot of comments that not only is the traffic heavy and backed up there during peak hours and school times and work traffic, but also on Saturdays and weekends, as well. So I do want the neighbors to understand that we are going to physically go out and do observe the intersection, revisit the signal timing to see where there's some improvements that can be made. And I'd also like to, well, I already have, but I'd like to make sure that the clerk's office has the revised comments from February 11th from Jane Strickland from DOT. You have those, okay. And so we'll be monitoring that intersection in the future.
Excuse me, CP, would you put that site plan up on our monitors, please? I'm sorry, Commissioner.
That's okay. Also, with reference to the comments on the landscaping, I did ask the county arborist after our meeting last Tuesday to review the submitted landscape plan and to see if he thought that the coverage was adequate or it needed to be improved with county standards. And I'd also like to submit his comments, which I did yesterday, I believe, but make sure the clerk has David Griffin's comments on the landscape plan, and then also the revised landscape plan from QT dated February 15th for the record.
Can I see that?
Do you have both of those? Yes. And do you have David Griffin's email with comments? Okay. So those will be on record, and in my motion, he will be reviewing and approving the final landscape plan, and he will be getting with QT to, he is on vacation this week as well as Jane, so he can't review what was submitted yesterday, but he will get with the applicant to make sure they have everything in place that they need to do according to the county standards. And then I'm also would like to ask the applicant to consider additional landscaping on the side bordering the LRO next to them. If you could put up the aerial, can I?
Yeah,
Are you
go
done
ahead.
with that?
Yeah, I just have a question when you get done, so just.
Okay, I'd just like to point out what we're doing here. Z13, as you can see, is the existing store that is on Woodstock Road, Mabry Road. The LRO in the blue or gray shaded below that is where they will be expanding if approved. And then if you could roll that up a little bit. The black outline, R15 in the corner there, right-hand corner, is Miss Lamb's property. And if you look at the R20 that starts to the right of Z13 on Woodstock Road, but continues down to Mabry Road, is actually what immediately borders Miss Lamb, but and then there's an LRO below the QT expansion, and then another residential R20 parcel there. So I believe Ms. McPherson owns the R20 in question, or that I'm pointing out, that borders Miss Lamb, actually. So we can't really do anything there. The only thing QT can do is along this southern border that the cursor's going over right now, is add anything there. So I just would ask that you consider that if at all possible. And once you meet with the county arborist, if he has any suggestions or additional standards or requirements, he will be reviewing and approving that. So I think that's all I wanted to point out, and I believe I'm ready to make a motion.
All right, let me just ask a couple questions real
Oh,
quick.
I'm sorry.
John, is it LRO allowed in R20 category, or in our LRO, go back to that, I'm sorry, Tim, back to where you just were. The other LRO is the zoning category. Is it LRO allowed in a low-density category?
It typically is only allowed in your commercial activity centers. It's not allowed in your residential activity centers.
Okay. And that LRO is the underlying zoning of that southern portion, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Mr. Calhoun, I'm going to direct this at you, but I know that staff's going to have to weigh in. The site plan that you guys are recommending, the number of parking spots that are part of the site plan you're recommending, is that based on other store in QT's? I'm positive QT has models as terms of the number of spots they need by square footage of stores and the pumps, et cetera, so I'm sure they got standards. Is this set to them? Is this set to QT standards, or is this set to county standards as it relates to the number of parking spots that are presented?
I believe it's set to QT standards. The county standards are very low. I mean, they're very low.
The additional spots, the number of spots in here are to accommodate QT's modeling as opposed to our
customers too, so they
Okay.
won't have to hunt for a parking place.
Okay.
That's really the objective.
I would ask that, in addition to the considerations that Commissioners already asked, that when you guys get into plan review, if you find that the modeling could accommodate fewer spots, that you look into removing those that are on the south side of the property if all possible.
Okay.
If it works. I don't want to create, I don't want to remove those and create problems elsewhere with double
Right.
parking and the driving gymnastics that occur at some other QTs by not having enough parking. But if we find in our in-depth analysis, when we get to the point that there really are incremental to what the modeling really needs when you get down to the details, consider taking those out. and that would help with the landscaping issue.
For customer parking on that south side, because there's an entrance on the south, there's two on the front, and there's one on the north. So you've got that parking that surrounds the building is principally for customers, but
Right.
we'll certainly take a look at it.
Yeah, that just seems to be and it may be because I can't read this correctly, but it looks as if you got parking on the north side and of the pumps, you got parking on all four sides of the building plus adjacent to Mabry Road. Again, I'm not getting into it, just duly
Take a
noted.
look at it.
Okay.
Okay.
Commissioner?
Yes, agreed. And also, we did reference this and did look at the number of spaces required and the number that you would have to remove to be in compliance with the 70% impervious surface. And it was, I think, over a dozen. So I know that may sound excessive, but I think that the reason for the more than required number of spaces is, and you may want to explain this better because I don't work for QT, but the way the store is configured, the customer base walking up to the store for the convenience store, cafe, coffee, donuts, whatever, food, is you want to separate that for safety reasons, especially from the gas pumps.
Correct.
And the convenience of one or the other or using both, and the walkability from the parking. And then it's my understanding that the parking on the side, the Mabry Road south side, is for the employees, and the parking on the back of the store would be for trucks or people coming in parking, additional parking that are coming to the store for customers, maybe trucks with trailers or equipment.
I think that's generally correct. Is that the
Yeah,
intent?
I'm not really, I get that. I mean, I understand the delineation between the parking for store and the pump traffic and the delivery pump and that traffic that might accommodate, walking traffic, and also the traffic that might accommodate those vehicles that are visiting the C-store that have trailers and things of that nature. It's just, and it doesn't really bother me all that much that there's parking on the south side because there is an LRO adjacent to it. So if it was a R20, I'd have a little bit more heartburn, but it is an LRO. It's in, as you indicated, it's in the NAC. So it doesn't give me that much heartburn, other than to say if it's not needed, put your focus on there as opposed to elsewhere in the site. And I just want to make sure it was a QT modeling versus our code, because QT modeling is going to be a lot more specific and to their application as opposed to our code, which tries to be broad across a lot of the usage. So I'm in concert. I just want to get all that cleared
Right,
up.
I understand. We'll take a look at it.
All right,
So-
Commissioner, you have a motion?
I do. I just wanted to point out one other thing. We talked about the QT trucks, delivery trucks coming in from the Canton Road side.
Mabry Road.
I mean Woodstock Road,
What's up?
coming in from
92.
Woodstock Road, 92. I'm sorry, I got Canton Road on my mind here. And coming around the back of the building for their deliveries. South of your entrance exit on Mabry is a no truck route. So they will have to turn right to go back up
on
to 92, to go right or left on 92.
Right.
And I just want to make that clear, that has been addressed as well. Okay, with that, I would like to make a motion that we approve Z13 zoning from NRC and LRO to NRC, subject to stip lettered from Mr. Calhoun dated January 13th and January 29th, and landscape plan submitted February 15th. That the landscape plan as revised be reviewed and approved by the county arborist. The DOT and out traffic group will review signal timing, especially during off-peak and weekend hours, and visually observe the intersection and give direction to visit the location. The final site plan to be approved by the district commissioner, and all staff and planning commission comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict.
Second. Second by Commissioner Weatherford. Any other comments? Call the question. Motion carries 4-0. Before we
Thank
call
you.
the next case, John, I'm going to leave the meeting. So if the record would show and reflect that I left the meeting at the conclusion of Z13, Commissioner Weatherford will assume responsibilities of the helm moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a legal question before you go.
I'll ask it.
Ms. Dance, Counselor, Commissioner Burrell has a question.
With Commissioner Odd absent and the chairman leaving,
course.
will everything from here on out need to be approved 3-0
3-0, yeah.
or just majority?
3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I knew that. Thank you.
Just clarifying.
I was going to do that.
Make sure the commissioner turns our mic on.
I know, it's a full-time job. Z15.
Thank you. Rezoning case Z15, Church Lane 1 LLC. Request rezoning from R20 to LI for the purpose of office storage and warehouse, which is existing in land lot 823 of the 17th district. The property is located at the southeast corner of North Church Lane and Collins Springs Drive. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z15? Let the record show there's no one opposed.
Thank you. If you would come forward, state your name and address for the record, and proceed.
Thank you. My name is Vincent Merkel. I'm the representative for Church Lane 1. Thank you, commissioners, for your time today. Hopefully this will be a little less headache, but this is involving a property that was acquired this past November, 2 tax parcels in the county. There's an older office warehouse building that actually straddles both of these tax parcels. One of the parcels is zoned light industrial. The other parcel was somehow zoned R20, resulting in basically half the building sitting on light industrial land, half of it sitting in R20. Our rezoning request is simply to confirm this grandfathered use of the light industrial property that includes a portion of the building that's situated on this R20 right now. There's no change in use. The building originally delivered in 1971. It was expanded in the early to mid-1980s. There's an existing tenant which has occupied the entire building for the past 20 years until just recently when they downsized and vacated a portion of the property, which allowed the owner to take in and occupy that vacated portion. If rezoned, it's the owner's intent to perform an exterior makeover of the building, significantly changing the look of this older metal building to something that Cobb County and the neighborhood could be proud of for many years to come. And that's basically all I have right now. I thank you for your time and your consideration and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Merkel. Appreciate that. There's no opposition. This public hearing is now closed, and since this is Commissioner Ott's district, I will lead the discussion on this one in his absence. Any other commissioners have any questions of this?
I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Keeper.
Because Commissioner Ott isn't here. The stipulations from the Planning Commission reference an email that was provided, I believe, by you, dated January 28th. I'm assuming it has all applicable stipulations
Yes, ma'am.
for this site. Okay. Agreed upon by you and the commissioner as well in his
That is
absence?
correct.
Okay. Just checking.
Submitted at his request.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Now I'd like to bring forward a motion to approve Z15 with the following stipulations. Subject to email correspondence from Mr. Vincent Merkel Jr. to Mr. Mike Terry dated January 28, 2016, including attached site plan, fire department comments and recommendation, water and sewer comments and recommendations, stormwater division comments and recommendations, and Department of Transportation comments and recommendations, and the owner developed interdevelopment agreement pursuant to OCGA 361713 for dedication of system improvements to mitigate traffic concerns. That's my motion. I have a second?
Second, with modification to OCGA, that is 36-71-13, just said 17. I just didn't want that to be, yeah.
I'm confused. Which one is correct?
36-71, you said 17.
Oh.
Just wanted to be, it's all. It's okay.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
One more
Good.
question. Are you going to delete this from R20 to LI?
As it's presented, yes.
Okay.
All in favor? Motion passes 3-0.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Yes, sir. Z17.
Rezoning case Z17, Young Park, request a rezoning from PSC and R20 to NRC for the purpose of a restaurant and retail in land lots 189 and 190 of the 18th District. The property is located at the southern corner of Mapleton Parkway and Factory Shaw's Road. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z17? Let the record show there's no one opposed. Would the applicant please come forward to be sworn in?
Would you come forward, please, ma'am, and present to the board? Ma'am? Good morning. State your name and address, please.
Apologize. My partner is maybe parking now. Give me just 5 minutes if it's possible, because I can explain the detail. So it's gonna be 5 minutes parking lot there. So could you?
They're parking now?
Yeah.
Mr. Vice Chair, may I make a suggestion?
Yes, sir. Go ahead and call it.
Let's suspend this one right now and hear LUP 2.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you. Just have a seat. We'll recall you in just a moment. And now we have a seat.
Okay. Land use permit.
Other business?
No, we're,
I'm sorry, wait a minute.
Land use permit number 2.
Up to, okay, thank you.
Land use permit number 2, Kevin Jordan, requested land use permit for the purpose of allowing more unrelated adults than the county code permits in land lot 134 of the 16th district. The property is located on the east side of Rambling Road, north of Starmus Court. Is the applicant present? Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to LUP 2? Let the record show there's no one opposed.
Good morning. State your name and address for the record, please.
Good morning. My name is Peter Francho. I'm representing Kevin Jordan.
I'm sorry, what was your last name?
Francho. I can spell it.
I can wing it. Thank you.
Good day, commissioners. Like I said, I'm here today representing my landlord and roommate and the owner of the house on Rambling Road, Kevin Jordan. I'm also representing myself as I live in this residence and 2 other of my roommates. Kevin purchased this house back in 2011, preparing to go to school at Kennesaw State University. And at the time he purchased it, he found some roommates. He says he's a people person and likes to be around people. And these roommates have also helped him cover the expenses of his house. During this time, while there's been a vast majority of the time that people have been living in this house, there have been no incidences. There have been a couple complaints, but most of them were dealt directly with the neighbors immediate to us. And the immediate neighbors that we've talked to since then have no problems with us living there. The isolated incidences that have led us to this hearing have and are being addressed in a number of concrete ways. Not only in that we are taking steps to be in compliance, but we also understand the intention behind these codes and are doing our best to represent our district. While I've only been living there since last spring, I've seen in that time that we've matured as a household and learned to correct ourselves based on the feedback of our community. We enjoy the quiet, wooded neighborhood and would like to keep living there for at least the next year and a half, which would give the students living there, some for 4 years, time to graduate from Kennesaw, and for the owner, Kevin, time to decide his next step. Before I begin addressing the complaints against us and the measures that we have taken to address those, I would like to give a brief background of my involvement in this hearing and why living in this house has been both a gift in experience and freedom. I'm a senior at Kennesaw State doing an integrative study that includes philosophy, anthropology, environmental science, and sustainability. While I enjoy the work I've done on farms and other things involving sustainable work with the environment, I'm also interested in what I call human sustainability, which includes becoming more efficient in sharing our financial resources. Many of my peers are worried about the soaring housing prices for rentals, and also that a lot of these rental units are being are unavailable with the new merger of Kennesaw with Southern Polytech. That my roommates and I can live together, share utilities, and enjoy a more reasonable rent helps alleviate the burdens of the rising costs of living, and it can position ourselves for less debt when we leave school. I'm also inspired to save for a house now, so I can build up some equity, and I've become an informal house manager of the current resident, so I help pay out bills, help manage the bills, make sure people are cleaning up after themselves, and also keeping up with any of the ordinances for our certain district. I consider this good practice in not only keeping up a house, which I know I will own one day, but also how to live in one and communicate with others. I have a compost pile going that's going to be soil for my garden in the spring, hopefully. I'm also a jazz musician and an animal lover, so apartments and their dwellers sometimes take issue with that. I was unaware of any past troubles that we'd had with the county when I moved in last year, although I had heard a anecdotal story that a past roommate who's long gone had a party. He did not ask the owner's consent, and there's probably about 15 cars that showed up and down the street. We believe that was the first cause of the complaints that have been against us, and that story came to mind with our code enforcement officer showed up to our house last summer saying that there had been a complaint last summer about too many cars parked in the driveway. So she mentioned this prior complaint that had been cited 2 years earlier, and I'm guessing she was talking about the unsolicited gathering. So I explained to the officer that we'd had more cars than usual. The couple of my roommates had gotten girlfriends that month, and so it seemed like there was more people staying at the house than there actually were. So this is the first time that I was really aware of all the codes that govern our district. And so looking over them, I saw that there's definitely some that we could immediately get into or quickly get into compliance. But another one would be challenging, namely the one that we can't change our relationship to family. The first thing we did was to make sure everybody know that if they're going to have people over, to try to carpool as much as possible so that we can limit any parking on the street. And also, although the previous owner had finished the basement had not been zoned for living space, so we had a inspector come out and rezone the basement to make sure we had enough living space for the adults in the house. And the real big issue is the parking. And so we've decided to add a carport that will be set next to the house. It'll be further back from the street than any of our other cars are now. And it'll add an extra at least 350 square feet of concrete space for the extra 2 cars. We started this construction process late last year, and despite weather delays, we've passed our first inspection and are close to pouring the concrete. We hope to be done within the next 2 to 3 weeks. As we explained to our neighbors, this will be a big step in lowering the impact of our cars, but also to minimize any on-street parking if someone does come over. We think it will solve all of our parking issues and go a long way to retaining the low-intensity character of the neighborhood. I am here and not Kevin because he recently found a great job at ThyssenKrupp Corporate Division, which is fortunate for him, not only because this company seems like it could be a great career, but that he's 10 minutes away from his house in Kennesaw. As a young adult, it's been great for him to be able to live in his own house, which allows him to focus on paying off his debts and getting steady on his own feet. He has not only worked part-time and finished school in this county, but he could have a potential career here, go to graduate school at Kennesaw, and maybe even raise a family in this county. But for the rest of us in our house, and everybody who is an undergraduate that will be finished with college next year, we are simply asking for a temporary land use to live as we have been living for the past 4 years. But as I told my neighbors, we're getting permission from the county to keep things better than they were and have been. As new to the housing and rental markets, Kevin and all of us have had no idea of the varying ordinances and housing limits for non-families. If we had known all this in the beginning, it would have affected our buying decision. And as he doesn't think he's going to settle down with a family anytime soon, for the time being, his other options would be the cost and hassle of moving out and renting somewhere else, and have to deal with managing the house from a distance with brand new tenants. He could try to sell the house, but again, this would be costly and time consuming, and we believe would have little effect on our neighborhood at this time, given the actions that we've taken. We hope the board will grant us the next 18 months to allow us to demonstrate to the community that we've heard them clearly and we're taking action. I believe all the staff concerns have been addressed, mostly keeping our low impact on the neighborhood and maintaining that low density. And of course, any other actions that the board feels necessary or questions that you have, we would definitely take those actions as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any other speakers for or against? Hearing none. Commissioner Burrow.
I do appreciate the fact that you are, willing to work out the parking situation. However, that doesn't put you in compliance with the code of no more than 2 unrelated adults. This was a result of a code enforcement complaint, and as recent as October of last year. It isn't a subdivision, and I can't support 4 unrelated adults. I feel that would set a precedent, and also it's against our code. So I would like to make a motion that we deny LUP 2 and give the applicant until the end of May to come into compliance, as that would be the end of the current school calendar. That would be my motion.
Have a motion, we have a second. I'll second for purposes of discussion. Mr. Cupid, do you have any comments?
Yeah. No, I understand where you're coming from. I'm just a little torn with the applicant because they have been living there for such an extended period of time and are getting close to their end of their matriculation at school. And I also know that we've been having increasing issues with the county with respect to affordable housing. And just the limitations of students who are attending Kennesaw State is a concern of mine, and their ability to live in close proximity that's affordable to the school.
But we do have a code, Commissioner Cupid.
I'm very much aware. I'm very much aware, which is why they're before us today. 4 is certainly beyond the number that we have in our code. I know we're looking at our code, John, I'm looking to you for some assistance. We're looking at our code with respect to vehicles, or we're looking at it with respect to number of unrelated adults as well?
Yeah, the code amendment that's before the board next week is just for the number of cars. It's not for the number of people.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything else?
I'm just, if I see saying anything, I'd just be thinking out loud.
May I ask a question while you're doing that, please?
Yeah.
It says that there was a code violation in October. Do you know of any others before that, sir? Pardon? So this is based on one in October of 2015, is that correct? And it was a complaint about number of unrelated. It wasn't about a party or anything like that, if you can recall? Okay, thank you. Yeah, this comes up all the time, and I understand that we have code and understand Commissioner Burrell's reasoning and setting a precedent, but it is a land use permit and each one stands on its own. I'm torn as well, simply because they've been living there 4 years, and I don't know of any complaints in the past. At least we don't have any knowledge of that other than what the applicant mentioned. And they have taken some,
I'm sorry, I thought you
and they have taken some steps to address it. So this is one of those letter of law versus spirit of law versus what's right. So I'm a little concerned as well. Commissioner Burrell, would you like to talk, please?
Yeah. You and I especially have this all over our districts in the KSU area. And my issue is, like I said, setting a precedent. And if we allow it here, whether it's been done since 2011 or when they moved in or bought the house, I'm sure there's hundreds of others that have been done over the years, and until we get a complaint, we don't know about them. But the fact is, our code allows for no more than 2 unrelated adults. And the parking is another issue that I think they could come into compliance with that if they're building a carport and limiting the number of cars outside once the code is revised, if it is at all. But That still doesn't take away from the no more than 2 unrelated adults. So that would be my motion to deny and give them till the end of this school calendar year, the end of May. I think school gets out the first week or so of May at KSU, and that would give them till the end of the month in May to, move out, and I feel ample time, 3 months, to come into compliance. So I would ask code enforcement to not, to be restricted from going there for the unrelated adults issue until the end of May 31st.
All right, we have a motion to second, and I will, with counselors, remind them that if it's not unanimous, it'll be continued on to next month. Is that correct for the full board?
Correct.
Okay. All right. We have a motion and a second. You have any other?
Yes, additional comment. Because they are actively in school, and I know looking for a new place is not necessarily a short-run activity. It can take some time. I would proffer that you consider till the end of June, a 4-month time period, so they're not doing this simultaneously while.
If I am guaranteed a 3-0 vote, yes, I will.
I'm not sure if we guarantee it.
I'm not a magician.
Well, you asked if I would consider that. To amend my motion, you mean? Yes.
Would you like to amend your motion, Commissioner?
I'll amend my motion to, that the applicant has to come into compliance, to deny LUP 2, and that the applicant will need to come into compliance by June 30th of this year.
So legal amendment. I'll second that as well.
But if it's seconded, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. We have the amended motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Yes, one other question. With the land use permit process, our county code does provide there can be up to 2 unrelated adults. Does the land use permit provide legal authorization for there to be more than 2 unrelated adults? It could. So we're not barred from doing that.
Well, that would be approving the LUP that's before us, correct? For more than 2 unrelated adults.
It would be approving the LUP for 4 or 3, or whatever the board decides is the right number for this property.
Right. Okay.
Any other discussion? I have a motion, we have a second. Let's call the question. Motion fails 2-1, and it will be continued to next one.
It'd be held to next
Held
month.
to next one. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, going back to rezoning case Z17, I'll call that again. Rezoning case Z17, Young Park, request a rezoning from PSC and R20 to NRC for the purpose of a restaurant and retail in land lots 189 and 190 of the 18th District. The property is located at the southern corner of Mapleton Parkway and Factory Shaw's Road. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z17? Let the record show there's no one opposed.
Thank you,
Hey,
please.
Jason, has he been sworn in? Okay, thank you.
State your name, address the record, and address the board, please.
Yes, my name is Song, last name Chung, and I represent the owner of the lot, track 1 and 3. And the purpose of this rezoning request came from initially to use the existing restaurant in track 1. The owner had a tenant who wanted to have a restaurant space, but the tenant found out the zoning has changed over time from a zoning that allows a restaurant to a certain zoning that doesn't allow a restaurant in that track. So there is not actually no construction activity will be taking place. She just want to have the existing restaurant space for new tenant. And she's willing to bring the space and adjacent land up, to comply with Cobb County building and zoning ordinance. And she's ready, and she has started a process talking with the contractors and architect and engineers. And that's the only request with regard to this zoning change.
Thank you. Any other speakers for or against? If not, this public hearing is closed. Mr. Cupid.
Yes, thank you. I know there's been some considerable activity with the applicant, Planning Commission, in addition to engagement from the Mableton Improvement Coalition to address the appearance of the site. And it looks as if most of the stipulations in the Planning Commission minutes reflect the request of the Mableton Improvement Coalition. I just have some minor changes to make to those stipulations, and then one possibly significant change that I'd like to address with the applicant, Mr. Sun. Yes, if you don't mind, if I can address you for a moment. Okay, thank you, sir. This application addresses both the restaurant site and the site where the laundromat is currently.
That's correct.
Yes, and in a letter that I have from the Mableton Improvement Coalition, they asked if certain uses can be restricted from that plaza. I don't know if you've seen the letter.
We've seen the letter. We're aware of it.
Are you okay with restricting that site to the uses that were proposed?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so I'm going to add that to my list of stipulations. And then I'm just going to make some minor changes and adding that the paint colors and architecture need to be both approved by the county and myself.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
And we have a small request from the
Okay.
first hearing. We were given the improvement activity timeline as certain activity as 30 days.
Okay.
And other activity within 90 days.
Okay.
But some of them we determined, like the repaving and improving the interior of the building, might take more than 90 days from start to preparing construction document, getting permit, and actually finishing the work. So if possible, we're asking a little bit more extension to major activities.
Okay. I'm certainly willing. I'd hate for you to say you're going to be ready by a certain date and not be, and then you're going to end up speaking in front of us
Right.
again with respect to this application.
Right.
What's the desired time frame that you have?
For those activity, for 90 days, we request that to be extended
To
120 days, if
120.
possible. Yeah.
Is that sufficient?
We believe so, yes.
Okay. There are some things that have a tighter time period.
Right, the 30 days, we need to have a building inspection done from Cobb County Building Department, and they will generate items that we need to improve on. So that, based on that, our construction document will be prepared, and that may take more than 30 days, we believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
The two things that I see for 90 days is for the painting over of the graffiti. Can that be done within the 90
Yeah,
days?
those can be done 90 days.
Okay. Also, the landscape plan, do you need 120 days to do the landscape plan?
Yes, that and pavement, repavement.
And pavement, I'm looking for, yeah, that's already listed for 120 days.
Okay.
Is that okay?
That's okay.
Okay. And then there's also a tighter time frame that the banner located on the building on track 2 be removed within 30 days of final approval.
I believe we can do that in 30 days.
In 30
Yeah,
days,
yes.
okay. I believe there's a okay, thank you, sir. I believe there's a representative from Mableton Improvement Coalition. Is it possible for me to ask them a question?
Did they
I don't know if they
sign
got
in or
sworn
anything,
in.
sworn in or
Can you
anything else?
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. State your name, address, record, please.
I'm Robin Meyer, Vice President of the Mableton Improvement Coalition.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
Robin, are you okay with the changes that we've discussed?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Keep it.
Thank you. With that, I move that we approve Z17 to the NRC zoning category, subject to Planning Commission comments and recommendations with the following changes. Modify stipulation number 10 to read paint colors and building architecture to be approved by District Commissioner. Also modify stipulation number 12, that the back wall of the building on track 2 to be completely painted. All graffiti shall be completely covered by the, we'll keep that as 90 days. I'm sorry, we'll keep that as is. Modification to stipulation number 13. Heavy landscaping to be installed on grass strip between tract 1 and tract 2. Landscaping to be planted at the rear of the building on tract 2 with the purposes to provide visual screening of the back wall of the building. Landscaping plan to be submitted to the District Commissioner and County Landscape Architect for final approval with consideration of aesthetic enhancement of the perimeter of the site. Also adding in stipulation number 18, that prohibited uses include liquor stores, adult entertainment, pawn shops and title pawn shops, tattoo parlors, check cashing, auto sales, auto parts and/or service, art frame retail sales, wholesale sales of any merchandise, gun, knife, or weapon sales, thrift stores, secondhand stores, or flea markets, used tire stores. Also, this motion is subject to staff comments and recommendations.
Second. Any discussion? Call the question. Motion passes 3-0. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Mr. Peterson, I believe, according to my notes, we have 2 items on other business. Is that correct? Just one. Okay, well, I'm glad your notes are different. Please lead us.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Mr. Vice Chair. Item number 5 on today's other business agenda is to consider a site plan stipulation amendment for Brownstone Associates Incorporated regarding rezoning case Z53 of 2014. The property is located on the northeast side of Steinhauer Road, east of Trickham Road, in land lot 123 of the 16th District. By way of background, the subject property was rezoned in 2014 for a subdivision consisting of 4 homes. The project has gone through the plan review process, and some issues have become apparent with developing the property with 4 houses that plat out to Steinhauer Road. In order to alleviate the issues, the developers proposing the 4 homes access an interior private road. The required access and the required stormwater detention are accommodated with the proposed site plan. The proposed site plan is attached for your review, and if approved, all previous conditions would remain in effect. We would ask the Board of Commissioners to conduct a public hearing and consider the proposed stipulation and site plan amendment.
Thank you. Open the public hearing for this item only. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this, please come forward to be sworn in. If you would state your name and address for the record.
Yes, sir. My name's Kel Langford. I am the property owner and also the person who rezoned the property for the purpose of a residential neighborhood. This property is a very small size, 2 acres. You might remember when we were up here in 2014, and we zoned it R15. And although it is small and few lots, it presented multiple problems. It turned out with site distance that we could only effectively have, we were permitted 2 entries or 2 driveways, but could effectively only have 1 location. And then beyond that, we had tremendous amount of trouble getting our stormwater, our detention center in. There was really only 1 practical location on the property for that, and we had initially proposed on our first plan to do individual lot retention and then do a water quality pond. But that pond, due to the meeting the lot size requirements, that pond had to be on a separate lot, and when we tried to separate that out, then we couldn't meet the requirements of the 15,000 square foot lots. So we have drawn the plan 4 or 5 times over the past year, and each plan comes up with some situation where we weren't able to meet a stipulation or a regulation of the R-15. The plan that we've submitted now, I think, meets all those requirements other than 75 foot of frontage along Steinhauer Road. So after looking at this for over a year and being eager to get going in the current economic model that we have in residential home sales, you know, I would definitely ask you please approve this new site plan. As Mr. Peterson said, all the other stipulations are in place. We're not changing anything about the zoning. Same amount of homes. We just needed to reconfigure the site plan so that we could make things work with DOT, stormwater management, collecting the off-site water that's coming on us as well.
Thank you, Mr. Twain.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? If not, this public hearing is closed. Mr. Peterson, what's staff's recommendation?
Mr. Vice Chair, the staff would recommend the Board of Commissioners approve the request, subject to the site plan received by the Zoning Division on January 12, 2016, with the District Commissioner approving minor changes and all previous conditions not in conflict.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to bring that forward in the form of motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Excuse me.
Good discussion.
This is my district and I have some questions.
Apologize. Will you please forgive me?
Yeah.
Okay,
I just have some questions for the applicant.
go ahead.
Mr. Kell, could you come up, please? Thank you. You said that the 75-foot distance from the road frontage, what is the actual based on the revised plan?
Well, what that was the way we had laid the lots out initially. I don't know if I can put this up. This was our initial site plan, and all the roads were fronting Steinhauer Road.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the regulation was 75 feet of road frontage along Steinhauer Road. However, we would essentially lose lot one to get our detention system in with this particular layout. So we changed to the layout that I think you have seen or have in front of you. 2 of the lots still will have that frontage along Steinhauer Road, while 2 of the lots will be interior lots and will not have that frontage along Steinhauer Road. That was
Okay.
that was the determining factor of why we had to come back through other business. We couldn't get around that.
Right. So the one private road, to me, is an improvement.
It's absolutely an improvement.
Accessing
gives us,
Steinhauer.
yes,
Right.
ma'am. It gives us less up against the adjoining neighborhood instead of having 4 lots adjoining. Now we've got 2. Which will just be the backyards, and then it gives us a bigger footprint to build a better house, a better price range for the area. So it actually improves the entire site plan.
And then the only other point I'd like to make is the sidewalk frontage, the sidewalk on fronting Steinhauer
Yes,
that
ma'am.
you will be putting in. I also have a sidewalk project for Steinhauer to Rocky Mount Elementary that's on my SPLOST list. So I'd like for you to work with DOT, probably Jane Strickland or Mr. Bentley is here today, as far as identifying the length and the area where you will be designating your sidewalk.
Okay, there is an existing sidewalk there already along Steinhauer.
On that side?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All the way in front of your property, or will you have to
Well, that's a
add
good
any?
question, because I know to get our sewer in, we were gonna have to disturb some of that sidewalk and replace it. So, it wouldn't be a problem. I think it is all the way, but I may be wrong about that. But otherwise, we were gonna have to replace the portions that we took up anyway. So it wouldn't be a problem to work, to put it back to whatever's desired.
Okay. Thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Cupid? None? I have a motion and a second. Everyone vote, please. Motion passes 3-0. Mr. Peterson, for my clarification, will you tell me what happened to old business 01?
That was on consent agenda, Mr. Vice Chair.
Okay, thank you.
It's on the first page.
Apologize, I missed that one. Is there any other business today?
That completes the agenda, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you so much.
Great job.
We are adjourned. Thank you.